Welcome to another episode of the Saga of Dice podcast. I had to think about it for a second. Today, we've got Matthias Krushel, as in he is
Mm-hmm.
crucial to this conversation about
Uh-huh.
Ossiarch Bonereapers we're about to have.
That's true. If no one else, if he wasn't here, then neither of us know anything about Ossiarch Bonereapers, so it would just
Nope.
be nothing the entire time.
I would just be talking about how broken they are. Uh, and if anyone would
Be
like to
good.
see why, I did put up a battle report. When was it? The day before yesterday, I want to say. I can't
3 days
remember.
ago, I think.
Something like that. Something like 2 days ago, approximately. It's Ossiarch Bone Reapers versus Soul Light Gravelords. It was kind of a triple whammy because, actually, you know what? I won't spoil it. It is it's a masterclass though in how to play Ossiarch Bone Reapers.
Is it?
Yeah,
It's my one and only game with them so far.
I know, but it's still kind of like at the very least it'll make you want to play them. Um,
Oh, there you go.
yeah, it's also like a master class on how to roll dice, both poorly
Mm-hmm.
and well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
take special note of both of our techniques, and do the same as one of us and the opposite of the other. But
It's
before we
all
get,
about wrist repetitions.
that's true. Yeah, got to get that practice in. So
Mm-hmm.
we've got Matthias here to talk about Ossiarch Bone Reapers. But before we go into that, there is some cool. There's been a few different sort of things that have happened in the news. So, do you guys get a chance to look at this rumor engine today?
I'm looking
I
at it
did.
right now.
What the hell is that?
I feel like there's no way it's not Flesh Eater Quartz, right?
Oh.
There's,
See, I thought it was like some kind of ghoulish hairdresser pulling off a wig, like revealing what's underneath
Of
it.
course.
Yeah, just be
Of
like,
course.
just a,
hiya!
a person that's no longer wearing a wig. Is that what they're revealing?
Yeah, they're revealing that that he styled his like weird flesh eater court, spines and whatnot into a fabulous do, and the wig that the ghoul used to wear no longer needs it, so he's just like yeah, like that, and then yeah, that's all I could come up with. So we think I'm right though, right? Like
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, like
How can you be
100%.
wrong?
it's the low hanging fruit if we're being honest, right? But I mean, can you guys like think of something else that's not quite so
Well, I think it
obvious?
might be a very ugly man holding a melting bowling ball. That might be it. Maybe.
Of
Mm-hmm.
course,
Oh,
that
yeah.
is a
It's got the
distinct
thumb holes.
possibility. Yeah. So maybe
Mm.
like the corn bowling team. Oh, or the fire.
New sequel to Blood Bowl. Blood
Oh.
Bowling Bowl.
Is it going to be anything like Tekken bowling?
Sure.
Did you guys ever play Tekken? I think was it Tekken Tag or was it Tekken 3? One of them had like a bowling mini game and it was fun. It was like I got into
Hmm.
it. um, I like it. I like it. So who would be holding a melting bowling ball though? That's the real question.
Tyrion.
Sounds like a 40K sub game.
That could be Tyrion's hands. He's been sitting in the sun a little too long. Maybe got a little crispy. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
he's got great nails, though.
yeah,
He's got a nail game.
yeah. He's got great talons. And
Hmm.
I'm just assuming you can't see the other fingers. This is all. I don't. I feel like we should just. Yeah, yeah. Well, he's reaching. He's either reaching into the melting bowling ball or he's letting it go. He's like, my work here is done. You know. I don't know. I still feel like it's a wig. I think I'm gonna stick with Flesh Eater Court's hairdresser pulling off a wig to reveal a new do. Final answer. I'm locking it in. I'm not phoning a friend.
Nice.
I'm just that's it. Okay. Now that we've spent that much time on that nonsense, we did get to see some cool Raptodon rules. I think it was
Combo?
today. Yep, some combo action. So they revealed the Tepak Lance ghouls? No, what? Guys, I meant to say. Freudian slip, I suppose. They have 3 attacks each, 4s and 3s, -1 rend, 1 damage, and then Cold-Blooded Unity. So add 1 to the hit rolls for attacks made with the unit's Tepak Lances that target an enemy unit if that unit was the target of a shooting attack made by the Raptodon Hunters in the same turn. So it looks like you're going to want to have them in power pairs. Running up, they do come in units of 5, so there'll be 15 attacks. There'll be +1 to hit if there's a unit nearby that shoots, and then you can always all out attack them again for +2 to hit. So even if you're at a -1 to hit, for if you're going into like gut rippas or something like that, you could overcome it with that, and you would just be 3s and 3s across the board. And then it combines with these shooty guys, right? And the shooty guys are 12 inches and 2 attacks each, 4s and 4s, but -2 rend, 1 damage. And at the end of the charge phase, if you charge in the melee guys, and this unit, the shooty guys, are more than 3 inches away, then they get to shoot at, is it the end of the charge phase?
It's in the...
Yeah, at the end of the charge phase,
Yep.
right? So what you could do is you could charge that 1 unit in, and then you get to fire again. So you get 2 kicks at that can. So they get to fire twice. So that's really exciting. I was thinking about it, and I was thinking like maybe if you have a unit of 10 shooty guys, and then 1 unit of 5 melee guys, then you're just kind of getting more out of those javelins. But yeah, anyway, they look cool. They're a great looking unit. They have this cool looking art piece. I'm guessing they're going to be fast because they look like fast cavalry. So what do you guys think? Like 10 to 12 inches, somewhere in there? Maybe faster?
Probably, yeah.
I don't think it'll be faster because they don't fly. What's that?
I mean, there's skinks. Skinks are what, movement 8 already?
Yeah, exactly.
And so
right?
if they're mounted,
maybe.
Yeah. I really like that they gave so they actually gave a reason to build both variants instead of just like, well, this is clearly the better one this edition, so I'm just going to build this one instead.
Totally.
So it's nice that they give you a reason to make the most of the kit.
Exactly.
But at the same time, they've effectively made it mandatory to have both now.
It's
just
true.
Because, because it makes them so much better each time. And I also think it's a really cool ability, but I do wish that for the Lancers specifically, it was changed the attacks hit characteristic to 3+, so that you could further increase it to 2+ with all out attack or something. Because
that would have been
to hit is a little rough.
It's true. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of 4s to hit. Being a Skaven player. I mean, yeah, 4s is always a little bit scary, you know. But it's true. But then I guess we gotta see what the points are gonna be. You know, if their battle line, like their speed is huge. I really came around on those the Spider Riders, the Spider Fang Rider guys for Gloomspite Gitz, just because they are the cheapest screen and they're super mobile. So like even if that's all they are, that's pretty dope, you know. But yeah, like I said, you know, it depends on the price. Like, yeah, if they're 200 points, yeah, I don't know. We'll see, right?
So if you had 2 units of 5 hunters,
yeah,
and would they both get to attack, do the shooting attack twice? Because then if they were battle line and you had the 2 units of hunters and 1 unit of lancers, then that's like a super cheap triple battle line right there.
That's a great idea. Yeah, it just says if there's a unit nearby, right?
Okay. Yeah, because the battle line point that's a good point.
It's
and
if
you can do that regardless, then
yeah,
sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yo, Keith, what's up, man? Thanks for joining us from down under. Anyway, so moving on. I mean, I'm just excited for Seraphon in general. So yeah. Speaking of which, or not Seraphon actually specifically, but they did show that there's going to be a Warhammer preview show. Usually they're really good about this, but this time I don't see, like, it's Warhammer Fest, right? So I'm assuming all the times listed are going to be in the UK. But it would have been really great if they'd said, like, this time here, and even if they only gave us like one time, they gave us like New York time. You know what I mean? I'd be like, okay, I know what that is, for my time zone. But they didn't. They just said it's this time. So I'm assuming it's not that time for everyone. I'm assuming it's in the UK, which means the big Warhammer Age of Sigmar preview show is going to be at noon on Sunday, which will be 2 a.m. On the West Coast of Canada and the United States, and 5 a.m. in New York, etc. And I don't know what time it is in Australia, Keith, unfortunately. Yeah, so we're up. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we are up from you. I mean, depending on which way you're looking at the globe. But anyway, that's cool. It's something. Do you guys have any ideas what you're expecting or hoping to see out of Age of Sigmar? Like, we just got some huge previews. I don't know what they're going to show us.
Go first, Matthias.
How long has it been since the GHB?
Oh,
I guess it's.
Well, the GHB is coming in the summer. They showed us that.
Supposedly right after Seraphon, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably something for the GHB.
Yeah, maybe.
Or have they previewed the GHB though? Like how far ahead in advance did they preview it last time?
That's a great point. I don't think they really do. I think they just say, "Here's a new GHB. Like, buy it or you're fired."
If they need something to preview, I'm sure they preview it.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
And it does.
Maybe even more cities as well. But...
Oh, cities.
Yeah.
I bet you there's some cities. What if there's like a new... Because it was around a year ago that we had Thondia.
Yeah. I can see them going to a new realm.
Or not even a new realm.
The rumor's supposed to be a new incarnate, isn't it?
I mean, that's what we got the last time, so that wouldn't surprise me. Mm-hmm. Although, oh yeah, that's true. I guess because it was like... But then again, doesn't it feel like we're going to be in Gur until we go to, like, 4th edition? And then we'll probably be in Ulgu.
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's fair. It's 10:12 a.m. currently in Australia. In Western Australia. Okay, so that is... Wow. Yeah, that's pretty different. 13-hour difference, I guess. 13 hours ahead? Yeah. Anyway. Wild. Okay, so... Oh, no, it's more than that. It'd be 15 hours, wouldn't it? Yeah, 15 hours ahead. That's crazy. Okay, so moving right along. Or, Carson, did you make a guess?
Cities?
Cities, right, you did.
Question mark?
Yeah. Okay. Also, did you guys notice that there's a Warhammer the Old World thing down there?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I will say I was kind of disappointed when I saw the preview for Bretonnia and they like had all of the old models and all the pictures, and I was like I was kind of hoping we get new Bretonnia.
Are you a Bretonnia guy? I didn't know that.
I am. Yeah. Well, that's like the entire reason I'm painting my Slaves to Darkness like I am. I'm just like I want to do like heraldry on each individual dude. Like it sounds like so much fun. But
oh man. Wibbly wobbly timey wimey stuff. Well, and speaking of which, they did show that the base sizes are going to be bigger. And so they said specifically that the base sizes that were 20 millimeters are going to be 25 millimeters. Now, this actually is important to Age of Sigmar players. Probably. And if this is the case, and it's what I've said from the beginning that they need to do when they come out with the Old World, is it will allow Age of Sigmar players to literally just go in and play the game. Because, like, our small bases are on 25 millimeters now, which is the same size as them, even though the round versus square on a movement trait, it won't make a lick of difference. So if that's what they're doing, it's a much better idea to have the cross pollination, because like, who among us is going to buy stuff for both games? You know what I mean? And they probably noticed how well that worked for the Horus Heresy. Like a lot of the stuff like the Condemptor, Dreadnoughts, and Leviathans, and all that other stuff that you can buy and use in Horus Heresy, you can use in 40k. Not all of it, but a lot of it. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's my hope. I'm hoping that the ones that used to be 25 millimeters will be 32 millimeter squares, and then it'll just all roll over. There's a possibility that like some of the characters won't match up. So we might have to paint we might have to like buy and paint like one extra character, you know what I mean, or a few extra characters, but like that's such a minimal investment compared to like having to like, okay, now you need to buy another 120 50 clan rats, you know what I mean? You're just like, I'm not doing that, you know, I'm just not playing the game. I'll do that because I'm crazy,
right?
But the average person probably not going to do that. Anyway, I thought it was really cool. I'm super excited. I saw a lot of people complaining about it on the Old World forum. Games Workshop, don't pay attention to these people. Like, seriously, like, who cares? Like, they're always going to be disgruntled. It doesn't matter what you say. Like, there's people in those forums that are going to be upset and disappointed, and their minds melt whenever this kind of happens, right? So if you had said they're going to stick with the same size, there would have been a large, portion of them saying like, oh, they should be on bigger sizes because then our models fit, easier, and like all these other things, right? So anyway, I think it's a great decision, and it will make them more money. Finally, Seraphon are going up for sale. They're going up for pre-order. Darn it. This coming Saturday. What's up, Darren? Which is today is the 18th, so it's the 22nd. It goes up for pre-order on the 22nd, and it'll go up for sale on the 29th. I am super excited. If Lizardmen had existed when I first got into Warhammer, they would be my main army because I was a dinosaur freak. I could not be more excited for this. I'm losing my mind. This is so awesome. So yes, prepared for a dinosaur review show. Actually, we're going to do it next Tuesday after they leak. After it leaks kind of on that Saturday, we're going to do a preview show. So I expect a similar show probably where we won't be able to necessarily show stuff. Matthias has been kind enough to come on and do it nice and early so we can kind of get the opinion out ahead of time early enough to kind of give people an idea. And Matthias is the kind of person who doesn't really need a lot of time, so all the more pressure on Matthias. Okay.
Tell you what I know.
Without further ado, Ossiarch Bonereapers. Now, Matthias.
Yes. My favorite army. Dinos are dumb. I don't care about dinos coming out at all. I don't care about Soulblight Gravelord. I care about Ossiarch Bonereapers.
It's true. You have put more love into your Ossiarch Bonereapers. You're known as a Skaven player, though.
That's just because I've done well with them recently.
Yes.
All I need to do is do well with OBR, and I can switch my branding real quick.
We'll miss you, Matthias.
Easier said than done.
Like, this army... Okay. So, first of all, power level compared to Skaven, they're stronger, right?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, there's a lot of strong stuff out there. OBR, the place where all the missing command abilities in 3.0 battle tomes went.
They've been saving up.
They've been saving
up all the things.
There's a limited economy on command abilities. And so they're just like, no, we got to give it all to OBR. For all the times that they couldn't reroll their charges, they're just all going in to this one battle tome. That's a godlike
That's
thing.
Right.
So
now they're rerolling charges in your charge phase, which is actually a thing.
Insane. I hate it so much. That's specifically actually. Before we get into that, okay. So I don't have graphics to show because I don't have the book and I wasn't able to take pictures like I normally can. So my apologies. But most people are probably just listening to this anyway, and we will read out the relevant information for you, right, Matthias? So.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, general view of Ossiarch Bonereapers. What do you think? I'm going to get a water because my mouth is already dry.
Sure. It's obviously, I think it's going to be a big bad for a lot of people because it plays the game. I think it plays the game mostly fairly. It has tricks that are very much so unfair, like -3 to charge. But it kind of has the Slaves of Darkness approach where it plays the game generally fairly, but it just does it really well. And so it has Rend 2 damage 2 base on things. It has 3-up saves everywhere. It saves stats very efficiently. And it ends up being very elite. I think on paper, the book is like the best book ever. Then once you put it into practice, it starts looking a little more rickety because you can't fit everything you want in. One thing that I realized when I really started trying to build the army, or build lists, is like so many units to me were an auto take, and then I'm like, well, if Catacross is an auto take, Arkan is an auto take, the Bone Tithe Shriekers are an auto take, a Mortiscard are an auto take, Cavalous Death Riders are an auto take, a Mortisan Hero is an auto take, then nothing's an auto take anymore. It's all just really good. It's good enough that it could be considered an auto take, but everything's just that good. And so it's no longer, it's just really efficient everywhere, all at the same time. And you definitely don't have the points to fit everything in. So you have to be picky and choosy about it.
Wow. What a glowing kind of initial statement. I love it. I mean, I was just telling Matthias and Carson I was watching the review of Zeech with Caleb Walters, and he's so much fun to watch because it's so awesome to see when people are enthusiastic about their army. So that's really cool. Yes, I've been on the receiving end of Ossiarch Bonereapers. It seems very it seems good to me. It seems good. I'll say that much. What's up, Danny? Thanks for joining us. So, could you explain their allegiance abilities? Yes, thank you.
So the allegiance abilities, when I initially was learning about the book, is what really made me love the army so much now. So originally I started playing OBR because it's the spiritual successor to Tomb Kings. And I played Tomb Kings in fantasy, so I'm like, all right, looks like it's OBR then. And it's the first army that I tried actually converting and making special, and that made it all the more enjoyable to build and play. And now the allegiance abilities and just the book in general maybe intentionally, ends up fitting the play style that I really love. And so everything's just coming together. I'm like, well, OBR just seems so good in every way.
Right.
And the main allegiance ability I'm talking about is the Relentless Discipline ability, which is, it's just elegant and simple in how it works, but it just ends up for so much play. At the start of the command phase, if you command an Ossiarch Bonereapers army, when you receive your starting command points, so that's the start of the battle round, turns battle round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So at around the same time you do the roll off for the turn, you receive extra command points. You get 1 command point if there's 3 or more OBR units that you own on the battlefield. You get 2 more command points if there's 5 or more. Then you get 3 or more command points if there's 7 or more. And the big point to remember here, the big point to see here is that these are cumulative, which means you're not getting 3 if you have 7 or more. You're getting 6 if there's 7 or more units.
Whoa.
So it's just, the more units you have on the field, you just end up dumping out command points. That's just such a simple ability. It just gives you a bunch of command points, and then you pair it off with your commands, where they give you a list of 7 extra command abilities to use it with, and that's just your thing.
And none of those are going to be in the Battle Shock phase, right?
No.
So
to talk about Relentless Discipline a little bit more, what I love about it is the elegance of it. It gives you, paired with the different command abilities, and I don't know if we'll need to go through them all, but it just gives you, it's kind of like taking the special unique things that units do in books, and it's stripping it off the war scrolls and turning it as an allegiance ability into a generic ability that now any unit can use when you pull from your CP as a resource to give anything at any time. So it ends up making your army very adaptable and reactive and able to switch around to doing whatever you want. But by also tying it to command points, you end up reining in its power a little bit. And once you play games with it, I've only played one game with it so far, but I found immediately when I played it that it ends up getting throttled by just the way that command points are limiting you. So even though the Ossiarch commands can be issued any number of times in a phase, the normal command abilities can't be issued any number of times. So you only get one auto run, you only get one redeploy, and that ends up throttling how much CP you might want to be able to use. It also means each unit can only issue or receive commands once per phase still, so only one. So if you get roared or there's any kind of way to stop command abilities, then you can turn off that main point of an allegiance ability from units. And it means that as you lose units over the course of the game, you get less and less command points, and so the allegiance ability dwindles with your units left, which is generally fine because you'll have less units to use it on.
Mm-hmm.
But it means you just have less to work with in general.
So at the start of the game, you're going to have the most amount of command points. And then theoretically, assuming you actually do lose units, you'll have less and less as it goes along.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, there are. It looks like we're having more powers available to stop people from stopping them from using command abilities, not less. Starting from, I guess, the Zeech book, actually, as a matter of coincidence.
Starting from the Nurgle book.
What does the Nurgle book do?
Overpowering Stench is a command trait. Stops command ability issues and receiving.
Right. That's true. Yep.
I think that was the first one. And then there's Olinder, who on a 5-up, when you issue a command on a 5-up, it doesn't happen. There's Skaven, who has that.
Olinder's one is the worst.
Trait.
I think Olinder's one is the worst, though, because you have to be within 12 inches of, like, I think the issuing unit.
Yeah, the unit issuing. So it doesn't end up coming along.
Yeah, it really, I found it kind of not as good. Let's just say that. But
it's a space that they're working on.
They are working on
becoming more common.
And I'm assuming we're gonna see that more. I mean, I don't know if we saw it that much in the Khorne and Slaanesh book. I'm not quite as.
Not in Slaanesh.
Alex says Ironjaw stops you issuing by killing you. That's true.
The classic way. They also have roar.
Yeah, they also have roar.
Stonehorn also does the same thing by teleporting into your backline.
Yeah.
That's right. Gitz can do it with Mesmerize on the Gobapalooza.
Yep.
There's a Slaanesh Selesky spell, I think, is you target an enemy hero and they can't issue or receive command as well. Same as in their old book.
Yeah, that's really good.
So there is access to ways around it. The main one, of course, being roar. But there's other things in the game that stop it. And also a lot of the command abilities happen in the same phase, so you do have to choose which one to use.
Yes. So, for example,
you have to be very...
Sorry.
For example, Reform Ranks is in your movement phase to retreat and charge. Adding 3 to your movement is in the movement phase. Healing when you're outside of combat is in the movement phase. Auto running 6, the base one, is in the movement phase. So you have to choose between those options.
So.
And when you look at the commands more specifically, you can notice little like snags that reduce the effectiveness a little bit, like adding 3 inches to your move. That's when you normal move with the unit.
Yeah.
Which means you can't run, you can't retreat, you can't run or retreat, basically. You only add 3 if you're walking normally.
Oh.
So you don't get to pair it with an auto run or anything. The other one is, because unit constructs, you also have to be outside of combat, which means you have to run away out of combat. Then you can heal D3 wounds. The big one is for bludgeon, which is +1 rend for a unit. You use it at the start of the combat phase, which means it's still affected by roar, but also you have to telegraph to your opponent when that you're bludgeoning with that unit, which means now they're not eligible to receive all-out defense. They're not eligible to receive the impenetrable ranks for adding 1 to your ward save. They're not eligible to receive unflinching coordination for fighting 2 units one immediately after the other.
Mm-hmm.
And it means that your opponent can, if it's your opponent's turn, you're really hesitant to use bludgeon, because you go, that unit's going to use bludgeon, and then like, okay, well, my first pick will be to hit that unit, which now is telegraphing that it wants to hit hard, so you want to hit it first, and isn't going to be able to defend itself with a defensive command ability in response.
Very, very
So there's really little snags everywhere in there that ends up reducing the effectiveness on paper that you wouldn't think about. The big one, I think, is Counter-Strike, though, if we're talking about these commands, which is when you're charged, you can issue the command in the charge phase, and you get +1 to wound, which is really valuable because the unit army already has good access to +1 to hit, and so it needs +1 to wound more, and so it kind of wants to get charged more than it does want to be charging, purely so it can use Counter-Strike.
But if you're using that in the charge phase, but if you're using that in the charge phase, is it the end of the charge phase or after they're charged?
It is in the enemy charge phase after a unit finishes a charge move.
Okay, so that's before Monstrous Rampage goes off, because that goes off at the end of the phase.
So then, it dodges roar.
It does. So it dodges roar, but then the other thing that's good about it is you can give them +1 to wound then, and then when you go into the fight phase, if they fail their roar, you could be +1 to hit and wound, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's so important about it. True. The fact that it's in the charge phase at all means that you're not using up your valuable receiving once per phase.
Exactly.
Just to get +1 to wound. That's huge.
Yeah, that's really, really strong. Okay. So that, I mean, it sounds like they're going to be an army that knowledge is going to be key for fighting them, especially. And we kind of talked about originally, and they seemed like a simpler army to pilot, but maybe that's not quite as much as it appears. Like, I think it's like low floor, high ceiling, which is kind of ideal. Like, that's probably the sweet zone for where you want most armies to be.
Yeah, they'll be carried by their stat lines, just their sheer stat lines when you start off with them.
Yeah.
Because a 3-up save in Rend 2 damage 2 is very efficient.
Oh my god.
But
it's so good. Wow.
And then it's a smart opponent can play around the command abilities better, and so you need to be even smarter to make up for that, if possible. And also to decide where to use your command abilities quickly, because it is very easy to dump out all of your command abilities in the movement phase, giving everybody +3 run.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of out of command abilities.
Or +3 movement.
Yeah, +3 to move.
Just to be clear, because you said earlier, and I'm assuming that this is true, that you cannot run and give them +3 to their movement.
Right, yeah.
So
+3 you're walking.
Right. So, wow. Carson, do you have any questions about this allegiance ability at all?
No, it's very interesting. I'm trying to think of ways to like play against it as someone who doesn't play OBR, obviously.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing is just going to be getting games in. But yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. You have to look at OBR as an army that, similar to Nighthaunt, where any unit can just retreat and charge. You just can't forget that. I think that's a big one to remember.
And if you have something with like a lot of rend, like in our game, I made one like clear mistake, other than just not knowing what I was getting myself into at all. But the one mistake I made was I didn't realize that you had a command ability to make them ethereal in the combat phase.
For Mortek Guard, yeah.
For Mortek Guard, yeah, Mortek Guard. So I chose my new Castelli monstrous action of +1 to wound, but when I'm rocking -2 rend on quite a few of my attacks, it would have been a lot better to just try and roar them, even though it's not a guarantee like the +1 to wound is, just because, you know, ethereal is...
Oh, it's so important.
The bee's knees. Yeah. So...
Yeah, it feels like... Go ahead, sorry.
No, please.
I was going to say, it feels like OBR is going to be a very difficult army for beginners to play against, because normally when you're playing a game with someone, you just like hand them your war scroll, and they make certain assumptions like, okay, they can't do these things, whereas you're just like, oh, I've got a command ability for that, haha, like, in my back pocket.
Exactly.
But there's a command ability for that.
So it's one of those armies that you really have to know before going up against. But from what Matthias is saying, you know, once you do know it, like, there's certain gotchas in there that are written in, which I do appreciate that they did that, instead of just being like, here's an insane war scroll, have fun playing against it, go F yourself kind of thing.
And I have a question for the book itself, Matthias. Do you so where, you know how it says like you can do +3 inches to your move, to like, does it say normal move or does it say move?
You use this command ability in your movement phase when you pick a friendly OBR unit to make a normal move. Add 3 to their move characteristic.
So it doesn't... I'm assuming they don't explain in the designer's notes, like, if you, by adding 3 inches to move, that means you can't run, by the way, because that's not a normal move.
Yeah, they're ineligible to receive it because you're picking the unit to make a run move.
No,
not a normal.
What I'm saying, though, is do they explain it in the designer's notes?
They don't.
Okay, that's what I thought.
They just say normal move.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure if... I was hoping that they did explain it, just because, again, there's going to be some challenges. Like, if you have 2 people who are new to the game, like, I could see myself overlooking that, you know, ability or that rule, and a new person
retreating,
like,
moving +3, auto running 6, and then charging back in whilst also healing.
Yeah, because it says, you know, like, most people are just gonna assume like, oh, it means +3 inches to my move characteristic, essentially, but that's not what it is anymore. So very interesting. Okay, I mean, and this army is very unique, and it has a unique aesthetic that some people really, really dig, you know. And so I can see a lot of new people coming into it and starting the game with
Seems
OBR.
popular, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, other than Fire Slayers, like, they all seem to have their niche, you know what I mean? Like, I went gaga for Idneth Deepkin, and then, like, I guess there's some people out there that are not totally in love with them like I am. I'm just like, what? Why wouldn't you be? Like, don't you love the ocean? Like, what do you mean? Anyway, okay, so... Do you have any questions, Carson, about the allegiance abilities?
Nope.
Okay.
Let's actually, move on to the next thing. Oh, sorry.
Sounds good.
Not
the next allegiance ability.
Did you list all of them? Did you list all the abilities that you can do?
Yeah, we can go over them just to have it concise. So Reform Ranks is the retreat and charge.
Okay.
It's in the movement phase.
Yep.
Then the other movement phase, Unstoppable Advance. When you normal move, add 3 to your move. Unit constructs at the end of your movement. If you're outside of combat, you can heal D3 or return up to D3 models if you have no wounds allocated. Counter strike, after you've been charged, you get +1 to wound. Impenetrable ranks, when you're picked as the target of an attack, You can add 1 to ward rolls for your Deathless Warriors, because that's one of the other allegiance abilities. You have army-wide 6-up ward, like all Death armies do.
Whoa.
That one's really nice, yeah.
Whew.
And the wording on that one is specific as well. When you're picked as the target of an attack, which means if you're targeted by an attack in the hero phase, by something like a Cauldron, by a Slaughter Queen, issuing the command, or Marathi issuing the command, or using Strike at the Opening in the current GHB, that's all hero phase fights. So you're being picked as an attack, so you can still impenetrable ranks. Whereas normally you can't all-out defense, I believe.
No, you can't. Yeah. I believe all-out defense says only in the shooting and combat phases. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's true. Retreat is
the next one is Bludgeon.
Oh, sorry.
Bludgeon is in the combat phase. It's add 1 to the rend of all of your attacks.
Amazing.
Including your mount.
Amazing.
Then the last one is Unflinching Coordination, which is after an OBR hero is fought for the first time in the phase, they issue the command to another unit within 12 inches that's also in combat, then that unit fights immediately.
What the heck? Jeez and crap.
That one seems really good, but then you need to remember that you're giving up bludgeon or all-out attack or all-out defense or any other ability. Right. And so it becomes a lot less interesting at that point.
It's true, but if you charge like Catacross in with, whatever, like some of the guys that already have -2 rend, you're just like, well, I don't need...
It's also an ability that a lot of other armies just get, though. Like, even for Slaves to Darkness, like, the whole thing is about attack chaining with, your Chaos Lords on Demonic Mount.
Archidrax.
Iron Jaws as well, and Virkos gets it in Soulblight Gravelord.
Yep. It's a standard thing for foot heroes.
It's out there,
nowadays.
For sure.
So to have to use a command ability to do that is a little sucky.
It's tied to a command ability.
Yeah. Do you mind if I ask about the terminology of that heal ability again? You said heal D3 wounds or return D3 models back to the unit if there are no wounds allocated.
Return a number of slain models equal to a wounds characteristic of D3 or less.
Gotcha. Okay. So, sorry, what I heard was...
For Mortek Guard, it's D3,
Gotcha. Okay. I was like, oh my god. You're like returning 3 more gas or something like that.
Oh man, that'd be too good for sure.
Keith says retreat is also a trigger for redeploy, so there is a counter to retreat and charge. That's a good point. Great point. And because like Mortek Guard are moving 4 inches still, so without their ability to add 3 inches to their retreat, they could struggle
on a 4-inch move.
Yeah, with
when you retreat and charge, you go directly away, which usually means back away from towards your own deployment zone.
But if you have them strung out like around, it's possible that they could even just struggle to get out.
Oh yeah, 4-inch movement. Playing Nurgle a lot. 4-inch movement just can't retreat like a lot of the time.
Yep.
You just can't.
Yep. I've even had trouble with 6-inch movement on my clan rats. In special situations.
And you can't add 3 to your move when you retreat either, because that's also not a normal move.
Exactly. Well put. So they do have more allegiance abilities. They have...
So there's the 6-up ward that we've talked about before. There's the ranks unbroken by descent, which is another marquee OBR ability, where you don't take battle shock for friendly Ossiarch Bonereapers units.
Yes.
That one doesn't come up as much now that Necropolis Stalkers and Immortus Guard are becoming more and more of a focus point. It's really Mortek Guard and maybe the Kavalos Death Riders that are really benefiting from that. But it's just nice. It means you don't have to worry about saving CP for auto-passing. It means that all the things in the game that stop you from issuing Inspiring Presence don't matter. So it's just
nice. It's not like you don't want some Mortek Guard, because like if you want to capture objectives, like you are probably going to want some bodies at some times, one would assume, right?
Mortek Guard have their place, but they're not like in every list.
They're not like they were before, where they were the auto take, like super obvious. Horrible says, how deep are we? Just in the allegiance abilities. Yes, we are just kind of finishing them off. I mean, that is so much of this book is their command abilities. Like it's hard to kind of, but anyway, putting that aside, and do they have any other ones that I'm forgetting?
The last new one is Netherite Weapons, which isn't new per se, but has been very much so expanded from what it used to be.
Cool.
Which is, it used to be the Netherite weapon type would have 6s to hit, score 2 hit rolls instead of 1, and you make a wound roll like normal. So what we usually call exploding hits on 6s to hit. And they've just expanded that to every weapon that isn't a mount weapon, which is a lot.
Including like Catacross?
Catacross's sword, shield, and his his companions are treated as a mount, but I believe they specifically still get the Netherite weapon bonus.
Good.
That's Arcan's staff and sword, but not his Resurrect's claws. That's your Liege Cavalos, his sword, which was a Netherite weapon, didn't have it before, now it does have it. And the big one is Necropolis Stalkers and Immortus Guard getting the exploding 6s.
Wow.
And effectively, exploding 6s is statistically the same as having +1 to hit.
Yep.
But what it means is that if you're already hitting on a 2-up, you're still getting a statistical equivalent of +1 to hit. And that means if you're hitting on a 2-up, you're effectively auto-hitting with everything.
Yep.
So you pair that with the fact that everything in this army, almost everything in this army, hits on a 3-up. And as soon as you get +1 to hit from any source, now you're effectively auto-hitting with your whole thing. And now it's just the wound rolls that you're worrying about.
It is similar as auto-hitting, but I think it's better because you also have the, like, because normally when we're rolling dice, right? It's like if we're 2-up, it's like, okay, I just pull out the 1s, right? You don't even think about anything else. I pull out the 1s, right? But if you spike, you know, like you may or may not have done in our battle report at times, right?
Yeah.
You're like, man, it feels like Christmas. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to have that ability for when you do randomly spike it, and then if you don't, then I guess you're only hitting on 2-ups.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Like, oh.
So,
gee willikers. Exactly.
For when, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. Horrible says 1+ to hit, baby. Yeah. And Keith says anytime he looks at Carson, he hears "Welcome to the Meat Dimension." I have that as well, but it's often because he often says "Welcome to the Meat Dimension." Even when he just shows up at my house, he's just like "Welcome to the Meat Dimension."
And also, any point when we're not recording, I'm just constantly slapping my head, my bald head. Just yep. Oh, my dog didn't like that. I'm gonna do now.
It's crazy. It's so much fun when Carson does something and his dog just randomly hates it. Oh man. Speaking of dogs, my poor dog is we're gonna do the 21 gun salute for his private parts tomorrow. He's getting neutered, yeah.
Another bone for the bone tithe.
Ooh. Now we're on brand.
We're sacrificing it to Slaanesh. I don't want to get too detailed with that. Okay. Oh my god. So that was the last allegiance ability, right?
Yeah.
So
that's all the allegiance abilities.
If memory serves, next we're going into command abilities.
Yep, your warlord traits.
Your warlord traits. Command abilities. I'm sorry. Warlord traits.
The commands are after in the next page, but they're technically part of the allegiance.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Yeah, I feel like grouping them together was the right choice. So
there's also other command abilities on War Scrolls, but
yes,
usually you just use them as they show up.
That's pretty cool, actually.
They don't tend.
Okay, so then in the command traits, warlord traits section of the book, how many? First of all, how many do they have?
They have a full 6, and it's just for any OBR hero, any OBR general. So it's not like
nice.
A wizard set, a normal set, and whatnot.
I wish they would do more of that. I wish there were more like like even if they're gonna do like, I've been thinking a lot about dinosaurs lately. There are dinosaurs all over my painting desk right now.
Mm-hmm.
So like, we haven't seen the Seraphon book yet, but you know, in the last Seraphon book there was like, you know, Slan only, Saurus only, and Skink only, right? So, like, I wish they would do like, even if they're going to do like, let's say they have 3 Slan and 3 Saurus and 3 Skink. I hope that they have like 3, like anyone can take them. You know what I mean?
Like what they do with Skaven.
Yeah. Well, no, but that's true. Exactly like Skaven. Only, I wish they would have them separated by like some kind of background color, so you're not just like reading through them. Like, I could have sworn Devious Adversary was only for Eshin because it was right next to an Eshin one, and so I was like, oh man, that would be so good on the Warbringer if I could take it. And then later on, I was like, wait, I don't see anything here, and like,
hold on a second.
Man, it's so random too. It's not even like cordoned out by section. Anyway, back to the task at hand. So, among the 6 Warlord traits, are any of them? How many do you like? Like, how many are like really good? Like, how many you're like, yes?
I like 4.
4 out of 6. Batting 66, huh? Sheesh.
You're gonna find that OBR kind of hits it out of the park in almost everything in that book. There's just one section where they suffer.
Okay.
A bit.
We'll hear about that when we get to it. So, So, are the artifacts similar in that?
There's not as many good ones, but there are some very good ones in the artifacts for sure.
Okay. So when you read the Warlord traits, were you just like, like that? Just I need a cigarette. Okay.
Yeah, there's some good ones in there.
Okay.
It's tough to choose, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess the downside to the really good stuff being the Warlord traits, like Skaven, is that you can only pick one, and you can never pick more than one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So, what is your? You like 4 of them, hey? Can we go in reverse order? Can you? Can we do a count now? Oh, heck yeah. Okay. Number 4. Okay.
I mean, we could start from 6 if we want. Number 4 is probably... It would have been my number 3 pick, but it's switched to number 4 now. Mighty Archaeosian. This is what used to be the name for the Petrifex Elite specific one, but now, because they're generic, it's just a generic one. It's ignore negative modifiers to save rolls for attacks that target this general.
Ignore. Oh,
this is
gosh.
A very powerful effect that I only know of in one other book in the entire game, and that's Neferata's spell, which is ethereal, but only for the bad half.
Yes, it's ignore negative, so it's really good. But you know,
on an army that has access to 3-up armor save things and can easily get a +1 to save, a 2-up unrendable means you can face tank a lot of things.
That's your number 4 favorite. That's the one you played against me, and well, I won't say, but like, it felt very oppressive. It felt very hard to deal with.
Right.
Yeah.
Oppressive is a good theme for the command traits. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's
the reason
so
it's number 4 is just because there's no great hero to put it on. The Liege Cavalos is a good hero to put it on.
Yeah.
All of the other eligible heroes to put it on don't use it well. And so the best you can do is 7 wounds on a 3-up armor, which means you can get a 2-up unrendable 7-wound guy with a 10-inch move running around.
Right.
Which is really nice.
Yeah.
But it's just... That's your general, so you're burning your Warlord trait on it. 7 wounds is such a low wound pool that... things can just push through enough attacks, and if you fail enough ones, you'll die anyways. And even though there are built-in ways to get around wards in the book, one of them being adding one to your Deathless Minions with the Relentless Ranks command ability, enough mortal wounds. You don't need to put through that many mortal wounds because it's only 7 wounds total to get through. And then any other hero, it's basically just they're all 4-up saves everywhere else. So it's all right, I guess.
Man, that's crazy. Okay, so that's number 4. I thought that was going to be number 2. But I don't know. If
there was a generic hero on a monster or something, then it would be way better.
Oh, it'd be crazy.
Would be so much better.
Yeah, I would. Okay, number 3. I need a graph.
Number 3 for me is Aura of Sterility,
okay,
which is subtract 1 from hit rolls and wound rolls for attacks made with missile weapons that target friendly OBR units wholly within 12 of the general.
Whoa! Oh, man!
That was such a roller coaster. I was just like, oh man, that's crazy. Oh, it's just ranged. Oh god, it's a bubble.
Yeah, oh god, it's a bubble.
It's a 12-inch bubble.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, that was such a roller coaster, like you said. Yeah, I was like, -1 to hit, -1 to hit and wound. Oh, and then -1 to hit only missile. Oh, it's a gumball. Oh my god, that's amazing. That's so good. Yeah,
right.
I'm right there with you.
So, what's so nice about it is, obviously, if it's a very shooting-heavy meta, this is great. If your list is weak to shooting, it's great. If you're trying to build, like in a team's environment, specific anti-shooting, it's great. I think it struggles to compete with the top 2 still, because the top 2 are still just so much more important. But I think there's corner cases where you want Aura of Sterility over the other 2 in general.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's still great on any hero that can take it, like a normal foot hero caster guy, because it's an Aura and he's probably attached to whatever big unit anyways.
Totally.
It's really nice for that.
That's really good. I really like it. And because OBR have a 5-up ward, it's not like Nighthaunt where you can only put it on 1 unit. They can put it on every unit. If you're just like, I really want to survive, I'll just survive. You can just deal with the aftermath. That's freaking insane. Horrible says, how much extra DPS do you have to put into it to kill it though? It can just run into your opponent and tag stuff up. Yeah, like you also have to worry about healing.
Unrendable. Yeah,
and like exactly like spoiler alert for the battle report. Like if you're an OBR player, watch that battle report because this is the 4th best CT apparently, and like spoiler alert, I couldn't kill it like with a goddamn Terrorgeist and other things. Like,
a little bit of luck, yeah.
Oh my god, yeah. There was some luck.
Well, he did end up dying in the end, to be fair.
Did he?
But it was right at the end when
when the game was already over. Yeah. Oh my god. Okay.
It has great value going into like mid-tier Haiti units or less because it'll hold them up no problem. But you can't put it into dedicated hammers.
For sure.
And expect it to live.
For sure.
I mean, it might take like a turn and stick around, but if it like takes 2 turns in a row and you only can heal it at the start of your hero phase, then that's where the 7 wounds really becomes an issue for it.
Crazy though. Okay.
That's a good point.
Okay. Number 2.
So number 1 and 2 is really difficult to choose between. I think you need to do a lot of iterating.
Flip a coin, Matthias. Let me know. Yeah.
Personally, I think most people would say Diversionary Tactics is number 1, but for me it's number 2.
Okay.
And maybe just because I don't like putting out the non-play experience of Diversionary Tactics.
Okay.
But it reads, subtract 3 from charge rolls for enemy units that attempt to charge within 12 inches of the general.
Wow. So it's the old Khorne. Basically, or not exactly the old Khorne one. The old Khorne one was too powerful.
Not quite, yeah.
But like, that's still good. Like,
that does a lot.
And it is the same thing. It is the same thing if you're within 3 inches. Because a 3-inch goes to a 6-inch charge.
Yes.
And then also it's a 12-inch range. Oh no, the other one was an 18-inch bubble, I believe. Right?
The other source of subtraction?
No, the old Khorne.
The Khorne was wholly within 12. Or no, yeah, it was wholly within 12. Halved your charge rolls and run rolls.
Was it half? Was it charge? Was it 12? That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Okay. Huh. I could have sworn it was 18. Okay, that's not quite as.
Might a bit more.
Well, anyway. Okay. Yeah, that's so good.
I mean, a dedicated melee army hates this. It just can't. It's like.
Oh yeah.
Because that's stopping turns a 3-inch charge into a 6-inch charge. It makes redeploy way more scary because it's 3 inches away. I move d6 back and then add 3 inches on top of that. So it's 6 inches plus d6 more that you now need to get on your charge roll.
Oh, man. Yeah.
That's the basic use of it. But it also has other interesting uses. Like if you stick that hero out on his own, you can't teleport to him and make a charge unless you're rolling Boxcar's 12-inch charge. Because he'll show up outside a 9, and your 9-inch charge is now a 12-inch charge.
Wow. Yeah.
So you can protect things from combat. You can zone off people from deep striking and charging anywhere, which really messes with the math of people who are relying on coming out a 9 or like coming out a 7 in charging. Now it's a 10-inch charge. Like, good luck.
Yeah. Yeah. That's super oppressive. I think you were alluding to a potential for NPE. Is that what you were saying? Kind of.
I mean, yeah, it puts out a 12-inch or so. Like, if an army relies on getting into combat through conventional charging at you, like Night Haunt will hate this because they charge and then they retreat and they charge again, and now they're going to be dropping like dead easy charges randomly. Right. They only get one reroll charge issue, so it's just going to be such a problem for them.
Wow, that's huge. And like you said, Stormcast Annihilators are just like, it's kind of a non-starter against
Sylvaneth, who rely on jumping through the Spirit Pass, stacking pluses to charge.
Yep.
Now you're stripping away +3 from that stack, and now it's because if a Sylvaneth unit doesn't get that charge in, it can't strike and fade out. So now it's stranded. So it becomes insanely risky to charge in when they're under the range of that. They can't take that risk. They have to charge somewhere else at that point.
Yes. And Keith, I thank you for saying that again. I did point out that you can only take one command trait and you can never take more than one command trait. So it's not like you can have one guy on, an ethereal 2-up and then, someone else making everything so it can't charge. That's true, but just any one of these alone is so like I would take it as like my easy like auto take choice in a lot of armies that I have. Okay. And then number 1, dare I ask number 1?
I mean, talking about diversionary tactics could very easily be better, but my favorite is Dark Acolyte, which is specifically wizard only, wizard keyword only.
Has a cooler
name.
In
your hero phase, true. In your hero phase, if the first spell this general attempts to cast in that phase is successfully cast, that spell cannot be unbound.
Wow.
This used to be a heroic action that OBR had from a White Dwarf, which was like, you do the heroic action, the next spell they cast in the hero phase can't be unbound. Wow. And they've just codified that as a Warlord trait now. But they've made the spell lore a lot better, and the endless spells are a lot better, particularly the Bone-Tithe Shrieker. And so because those things are so powerful, Dark Acolyte becomes really, really valuable for guaranteeing that your Mystic Shield, your Reinforced Constructs, or your Bone-Tithe Shrieker comes out, whatever you need the most.
Can I just point out, too, because I do know what the Bone-Tithe Shrieker does, I feel Dark Acolyte is actually a better choice in the mirror match with OBR.
I mean, the Bone-Tithe Shrieker doesn't affect OBR units in general.
Well, it doesn't.
Mystic Shield is a really tested. No, it says this does not affect Ossiarch Bonereaper units.
Oh, never mind then.
Yeah.
It only works against everyone else. How nice for you.
Only everyone else. Yep.
Okay, so then that doesn't apply at all. Although I guess it could, depending. I don't know what the other spells do. I don't remember, but wow. Okie dokie. So then Yeah, that's really good. Okay. I like all of them. I don't.
Yeah.
I might.
The nice thing about Dark Acolyte is it's not mandatory, because there's other ways around it. Like Arc in the Black has just +2 to his casting, so if you have him, you can get away with not taking Dark Acolyte. Or if you're just ultimately, if you're in a meta where you don't need to worry about big unbinders like Lords of Change or Teclis, or even +1s like Scrap Rot, then you're not that worried about it. Then you don't have to be that worried about it, and maybe Diversionary Tactics is more valuable. But
Yeah.
I like it as an all-comers for just guarantees.
For sure, yeah. I like what Keith says. That anti-charge bubble command trait, it has the feels of, I could take that one, ... but I have a soul, so I won't. Well said, Keith.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Love it. Force out a spell versus Teclis, says Horrible. Yeah, that's another good call for Dark Acolyte.
Yeah.
So, okay. Very, very strong. I like where your head's at.
Mm-hmm.
Artifacts. You said you like how many of those? Not 4.
So artifacts have 2 sections. There's the generic OBR ones, and then the Mortisan ones. And your Mortisans are your little foot caster heroes.
So it's basically
Ossiarch, the Bone Shaper, the Soul Mason, and the Soul Reaper.
So one for wizards, one for like warriors.
Yep. Okay. Pretty much.
Which section is first?
I like 2 of each. So the first one is the generic OBR heroes.
Okay.
There's 2 good ones. The others are
How many are there total?
There's 4.
Okay.
4 for each section.
That's solid. I like it.
Yeah. So the best one that I think is going to be almost a staple but the one that you'll not be surprised to see a lot is the Load of Saturation, which is just add 1 to word rolls for the bearer. Just add 1 to word rolls, which is really nice because you have Deathless Means. It permanently puts it from 6 up to a 5 up. If you use Relentless Ranks, then it goes to a 4 up. And then there's this spell Reknit Constructs, or Reinforced Constructs, which can give a unit a 4-up ward against mortal wounds, and that would make it a 3-up ward against mortal wounds because it's just any ward roll.
Whoa!
And in particular, this combos really well with the Mighty Archaeosian, where you ignore negative rend modifier command trait, and then you also add to your wards to give you even more resilience against mortal wounds.
I do remember that.
Yeah. That's right.
Oh, God. Okay. And then...
It's just solid.
Yeah.
The Helm of Tyranny is the other good one, though.
Uh-huh. I don't think I know this one.
It's enemy units cannot receive Inspiring Presence while they're within 3 inches of the bearer. In addition, if an enemy unit fails a battle shock within 3 inches, add D3 to the number of models that fleet.
Whoa.
I mean, it's powerful. I would say that as, you continue to increase the number of things that can turn off Inspiring Presence, it dilutes the power of that ability for everybody. And the big reason that it's not as amazing is because the Bonetide's Shrieker, as we'll find out, also turns off command abilities. Or turns off Inspiring Presence command ability.
Yeah, it's true. But, like, if you stick, them with, like, a unit of, like, hammers, just pick one of the many from this book, right? You send them into, like, a unit of trolls or storm fiends, and you kill 1 or 2, like, they can lose the whole unit. Like,
right.
That's crazy.
You do need to be sticking. So it works best on the Leech Cavalos, because any other foot hero, you have to put them into combat, and that makes them liable to die. Or
right.
Other bad options.
Well, and also he's more mobile.
Yeah, and he's also movement 10, so he's much more. You're able to put him where it's needed.
Whew.
So it's good, but it's not amazing, just because it's a a bit of a diluted ability these days.
I think I kind of like the first artifact to improve your ward on, and then you put it on your general, and then whatever insanely, amazingly awesome command trait you already picked, it just makes him more durable, survivable. You're getting an extra CP. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're just getting all the things, the benefits out of that. But sheesh. Okay. Now we're on to the second set of artifacts. What's your number 2 pick for wizards?
So the cool thing they did with these artifacts is there's 4 artifacts and there's 4 heroes eligible to choose it from the list. And what they've done is they've just coded one of each of the artifacts for each of those different types of heroes only. So the Soul Reaper gets one, the Bone Shaper gets one, the Soul Mason gets one, and the Ossiarch gets one. So they don't share.
That's pretty cool that they just... So basically there's like 2 heroes that you'll want to take an artifact on, but I'm assuming it kind of interacts with them in some kind of unique way, which makes them compelling.
Yeah, they're all fairly unique.
Okay.
The 2 good ones are... The best one is for sure the Gothazar Cartouche, which is for the Ossiarch, the new guy.
Okay.
It's add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made with melee weapons by friendly OBR units wholly within 9 inches of the bearer.
Wait, sorry, say that one more time. Add 1 to...
wound rolls for melee attacks.
Whoa.
For anybody wholly within 9 of the bearer.
That's really good because that's where they kind of struggle.
That's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we've got to hit squared away. We can get plus to hit thanks to Catacross or all at attack.
And you generally hit quite well. Now. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. And so, and especially with Nerfed Weapons, generating more wound rolls, it makes adding to wound rolls more important and makes minuses to wound rolls more painful. And so a static +1 to wound where you don't have to be charged in order to get it is going to be really valuable. And so whenever I'm looking at it, whenever I'm looking at the little foot heroes, I'm always like, if I have an artifact, it's the Ossiarch because the artifact just makes him worth it. Otherwise, it's the Bone Shaper.
Wow.
Because the Bone Shaper is the other guy with the good artifacts.
Okay.
And so the Bone Shaper's ability, the artifact is tied to his ability. The Bone Shaper can heal or return models to units equal to the number of wounds that they would heal, and the artifact just lets him do it on a 3-up. He can either pick 2 units to use his ability on, or pick the same unit twice.
Whoa. Yeah, that's good.
And so it's good. Bone Shapers tend to be like attached to a unit because it's just a 6-inch reach for their ability.
Yeah.
So, but it just makes them more efficient. So it's worth it. It just makes them more efficient. But that's about the only artifacts. So the artifacts are like A tier. They're good, but they're not gonna like warp the game like maybe other artifacts in other books can.
I see. Wow. Yeah, I mean the plus to wound roll seems really strong, and the ward roll, like those 2, I think I might pick every game. You know. Yeah,
it just the best artifact of the list, the one for the Ossiarch, is tied to the worst of those hero options, I think, because his ability and spell are close to useless, in my opinion. So that's you fair. Take him purely just for the artifact that comes stapled to him.
Wow. Okay. Pretty solid so far, though, to be honest, overall. Really good. Okay. Now, I believe the next section is the sub-allegiance section?
The spells.
Oh, the spells. Okay. How many spells?
It's a full 6, which is nice. There's been a lot of reduction in spell lords recently, so it's nice to get away with a full 6.
Yeah, you and I.
Right.
It's not like the Skaven ones were that great either. But
Skaven, and then also Soulblight Gravelords got theirs reduced.
They did, but they were all bad before, except
for a bunch of garbage ones.
Yeah, they were all bad. So this is actually like a huge improvement to them, addition by subtraction somehow. Not the necromancer ones.
Except for the necromancers.
The necromancer ones were always good, and they're even better now. Anyway, that's a whole other show.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you have 6 spells. How many do you like?
4 of them have their place.
Okay.
In particular, 2 or 3 are really good.
Okay.
1 is weird but powerful for what it does, and then 2 are just kind of like, I guess.
Okay. If you're rocking a bunch of spellcasters and have extra slots for perhaps some more utility.
Well, there's 3 different units in the book that are lore masters, so.
Oh wow.
It's nice to have the options. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay. Maybe just take us through the ones that you really like.
So, Empower Netherite Weapons is the first spell of the lore. It's solid. It's range of 24. You put it on a unit in range, wholly within range. They explode on 5-ups instead of 6-ups. So 5-ups to hit are 2 hit rolls instead of 6s to hit or 2 hit rolls.
Wow, and it's so much easier to spike on 5s.
It's a lot easier to spike, true, and it's also just like, 1/6 more attacks. So it's just, if you're trying to hit as hard as you can, you throw Empower Netherite Weapons on. Just a straightforward offensive hit. Offensive spell.
That seems amazing. Okay. What else you got?
The next one is Reinforced Constructs, and this one's my favorite one. It's the one I alluded to earlier. Wholly within 18, pick a friendly OBR unit. They have a 4-up ward against mortal wounds until the next hero phase.
Gross.
It's just so nice because this army is good at save stacking, and so it means mortal wounds are really valuable. So this spell becomes super important for also being able to block mortal wound damage. And this spell is why I really like Dark Acolyte, the command trait where you can't be unbound for your first spell. Because if you're playing against, an army like particularly even Tzeentch, who's going to dump out mortal wounds with their spells, if you can put a 4-up ward and they can't stop that spell from getting through, put a 4-up ward on something super important, now it's going to be super resilient to the enemy, to those mortal wound outputs.
Yeah, totally. Wow. Okay. Those are both really good. And then, and I mean, it might be worth mentioning that this book is not, other than Arcane the Black, it's not the strongest spellcasting book. Like,
between Arcane the Black and Dark Acolyte, it's good at spellcasting.
Yeah.
But, yeah, past that, it has no pluses, no rerolls endemic to it, other than Arcane the Black, and then your autocast command trait.
And so, if you're not...
Well, not autocast, but unstoppable.
Well, and if you're not taking Dark Acolyte, then... And you're not taking Arcane, like... Because I can see that being a common take, Like, I think Catacross...
Yeah, you need it just for the resilience against wards.
Yeah. Anyway, that's pretty cool. Okay. Is there another spell you wanted to highlight?
Yep. Drain Vitality is another very good one.
Okay.
Casting value 6, pick an enemy unit within 18, -1 to hit, -1 to save. Just value. It's not like having chart, so like continuing with the theme of OBR, just playing the game really well. It's not having charges, it's not setting your attacks characteristic to 1, it's not doing these really crazy things or turning off command abilities. It's just making you more efficient and making your opponent less efficient.
Yeah, that's really good. Like, I would love to have that spell. like your number 3 pick is like, man, I'd love to have that spell in like any book that I've got. And by the way, that even your 3rd pick is better than any of the new vampire spells that are way better than the old ones.
Well, to be fair, this would be my 2nd pick. I'm not actually doing them in order. Reinforced Constructs with a 4-up ward against mortals is my number 1. That's number 2. Then the Exploding on 5 is number 3.
God dang. That's so insane. Okay. Do you want to highlight any other spells?
The last one is I want to talk about a soul release, and it's interesting. Casting value of 5. If successfully cast, enemy reserve units and summoned units cannot be set up within 12 inches of the caster.
Oh, man.
And the range of the spell has to be measured from the caster. Can't put it through a spell portal.
Jeez, but then you get to move after that. Also, it's like basically infiltrators from 40k.
Yeah, this spell to me reads like a 40k roll. It is just a 40k roll.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Pushing out deep strikes. So I find it's very situational. Like I don't think I'd really very often, if at all, pick this as a spell to put on a hero. Like the other 3 I would rather have, because they're useful in all situations. Because this one is like an Ironjaw's army that doesn't have Hand of Gork, or a Squig army that doesn't. Well, no, it's really good against Gits. But any army that just has high movement or doesn't teleport or summon, obviously it's not going to have any value. So it's situational.
But it's really strong against like Soul Blight, against Squigs, against anything, or not necessarily
really
Squigs,
powerful,
but Gits in general. Yeah.
Because it's really powerful against certain armies because, unlike 40k, there's different ways to get closer than 9 inches when you set up, and this turns it off. Not only turns off 9-inch setups off, but turns off those abilities way off.
But it doesn't just set up those kinds of movements. It stops people from using, like, for example, the Legion of Night, like allegiance ability. It would stop
around the hero.
Around the hero, yeah, but then you throw them forward. It would stop them from using the like if you get them close enough to the Loon Shrine, they just don't get to bring back units.
Yeah, so it's really powerful against the armies that set up closer than 9 inches, which is Gloomspite Gits, because they set up outside of 3 when they revive out of the Loon Shrine.
Yeah.
It counters Skaven things, the Deceiver, who teleports within 6 or outside of 6, and Slink Skittershank, who sets up outside of 6. It's really powerful against Beasts of Chaos, who have the Warlord trait to set up outside of 7.
Right.
Because it pushes them out entirely.
Do Gits have the summonable keyword, or is it considered reserved?
But it's like if you when you kill a unit on a 4-up, you can get that unit back. You have to set them up next to the Loon Shrine, or if
but
you.
Yep. Go ahead. Sorry, I was gonna say is the wording on what Matthias is talking about specifically for setting, or like generally setting up? Because I thought he just said reserves and summonable units.
I did not.
Because if that's the case, then it wouldn't shut off Gits.
That's
true. It seems kind of crazy. You just like park the spellcaster right next to the Loon Shrine. It's just like, well, you can't use this thing for the rest of the game. Yeah, granted, like obviously if you stomp it, that's
turn
the
off
same
your
thing
allegiance
too.
abilities. Okay,
yeah.
Sorry. So
right.
Yeah, Horrible said so handy to have in your pocket with Loremaster earlier about that spell. That's what I was going to say as well.
That's the part I was going to say.
And then Keith said, did they remove... Oh, yeah, sorry.
It's only really good because Loremasters are prevalent in the army. But if there wasn't Loremasters running around in this army or everywhere, you just can't afford to pick it because it's too situational. But because you can just Loremasters, add situational spells value, the fact that you have a super situational spell like this is amazing now.
Totally.
So going back on what I was saying earlier, though, the wording for the spell is reserves or summonable units being set up, right?
Or summoned units, yeah.
Does that apply to Gits then?
No,
if that's the case?
No, it wouldn't apply to Gits because that's not a summonable or reserve unit.
Is it a new unit for Gits?
Yes.
Because in the core rules, a unit that is added to your army once the battle is underway is called a summoned unit. So I think if it's a new unit, it's being added to your army. And so it wouldn't stop Alariel from coming back, because she's not a new unit when she comes back.
No.
She's the same unit coming back.
Yeah.
But
I know
believe
that
the core rules codifies revived units as new units, therefore they're summoned units.
Yeah, it is. They are definitely new units, because I know that they don't get like the same battalion stuff or anything like that. So that would work, like I said, then against Legion of Night. It would work against Gits and so many other things. It wouldn't work against, for example, like the Squigs getting their models back from the herders.
Correct.
But like,
or Rally in general.
Although Rally's been nerfed so much that you're just like, okay, whatever. Wow. Alex says, what's the wording? Does it stop disembarking? No, because that's not a reserve. That is is it a reserve? I don't think it's a reserve unit.
That's an interesting point. Yes.
Yeah.
Let's check what the wording is for.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, Keith. Because so the Legion of Night ability in Soulblight is when they die, you can bring them back at the end of the movement phase, but then I think it's Legion of Night specifically can do it. I can't remember what the difference is now. I'm just not even looking at Legion of Night, if I'm being honest. I'm just like Castellan Virkos all day, son. I don't think they're the strongest. I just love them from the start. I love their flavor and everything about them. But yeah, so it would absolutely stop the Soulblight from recycling the unit, because they are a new unit, which Matthias just said counts as in reserve. That's insane.
It counts as being summoned.
Summoned, yeah. Alex says, I think embark units are on the battlefield for rules purposes now. If he recalls correctly, this rule must have been what they did. What they did that.
I think it's why they did that.
Oh, why they did that. Oh yeah, the T is next to the Y. That's probably correct. That's an interesting question that might need to. Thank you. Yeah. I might have to get clarified in a.
No, I think it's okay.
Okay.
I think they can still disembark fine, because they're not technically a reserve unit. They're still on the battlefield.
Right.
And they're not a brand new unit being summoned. So that they're fine.
Cool. That's good. Honestly, the less things that are affected by that, the better, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's not setups.
Because, like, if we're being honest, I think
was very intentional by them.
I think so too. I think, if we're being honest, they also probably didn't notice. I don't think they thought about Gits and Soulblight and a few other things when they made this rule. I think they were.
That means teleport spells aren't affected by it. Aha.
Oh,
that definitely reduces the value a lot. So teleports are unaffected, which means it's even more situational. But
yes, I'm kind of glad for that. My Skaven are struggling enough. leave my Deceiver alone.
Right. Slink gets screwed over, but the Deceiver's fine.
Slink Skittershank? Right. Yeah, because he's a reserve unit. That's true.
He's setting up.
Yeah. If embark units were reserve units, they would die on their boats in turn 4. That's also true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that just makes sense. They're suffocating because they're too high up in the sky.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. Yeah.
They are
lore appropriate.
They are dirty dwarves, the enemy of my kind. So therefore, anyway, jokes aside, that's a really good spell lore. I am jealous. So, and then I guess now we're on to sub-allegiance abilities, or sub-allegiances.
Yes.
Okay.
Sub-factions.
The
hosts.
Thank you.
Bonereaper legions, that's what they're called.
Legions of the Damned. And I'm talking about the people who are going to play Ossiarch Bonereapers. Their souls are lost.
There you go.
But, what do we got? Okay, so how many are there?
We got 6.
6.
Same as before.
Sheesh. Okay. So, how many are?
So
how many do you like?
There's the two super powerful ones.
Okay.
There's the two bad ones.
We'll reserve.
And then there's the two interesting ones.
Perfect. Okay. Oh man, where should we start, Carson? Interesting or good?
Bad.
Start with bad. Okay, we'll hear them all. We'll hear them all. I like it. Okay.
Right.
Let's
just the clip
wait
notes
in.
of the bad ones.
Yeah, let's wait in. I love it.
So the first bad one is Ossiarch Lords, which is reroll charge rolls for Ossiarch Lord units that have a mount.
Okay.
It's
what? What are Ossiarch Lords?
Charges
first of all,
the Ossiarch Lords. They're supposed to be the mounted sub-faction.
Oh, I see. That's the name of the
read their
legion.
little
I thought it was a keyword, and I was
Yes.
just like, "What? This is new to me." Okay, so basically,
yeah, sub-faction. It gets
so
a keyword silly.
basically
So it's
cavalry.
Your
If you want,
Cavallos.
yeah, those guys, and
Which there are 3 cavalry units in the book.
okay,
There's Cavalos Death Riders, the Liege Cavalos / Arch Cavalos Xantos, but he doesn't count because he's Mortis Praetorian keyword locked, so
Okay,
you can't
got
get
it.
it anyways.
I got it. Yeah.
And then there's Ark in the Black, who does have a mount and isn't keyword locked.
Oh, neat. Okay.
But it's rerolling charges. The fact that you're limited to just those 3 units and you want to be taking other units for their power anyways means you're probably better off just relying on your reroll charges command trait anyways. If you really wanted reroll charges, just take the Triumph to reroll charge and keep your points lower. Not hard in this book because you end up with like 50 spare points a lot of times in this book when you're building lists.
Yes, it's clearly bad, but God bless anyone who takes them. They are the true, what do you call them? Like the lore masters, you know? Alan Wesley says, isn't Legion of Night and Dark Walkers for Beasts of Chaos kind of a teleport?
The Dark Walker ability to reset up, yeah, that's a teleport. That wouldn't be affected by Solar Release
right?
Specifically.
Legion of Night?
And then the Legion of Night is fine too, yeah. The Legion of Night ability is the countercharge ability, which is the exact same as one of the good ones. And then the heroic action is teleport outside of 9, so it's unaffected.
Oh, okay.
It's just the summoning new units part.
Very cool. Thank you, Alan, for pointing that out. And Keith says, eat the things you don't like first. That way you finish your meal with a good taste in your mouth. I totally agree.
That's right.
I do that, and I've done that since I was a kid. Love it. Okay. Second vegetable that we must eat first.
The Ivory Host.
Okay.
So this one's like really weirdly worded, so I'll read it and then I'll explain it properly. Add 1 to the number of hits scored by the Nerfed Weapons battle trait by friendly Ivory Host units if the unmodified hit roll was 6 and any wounds or mortal wounds were allocated to that unit earlier in the turn.
What the hell?
If they took damage.
What a word salad of an explanation. What the hell was that? Okay. Huh. Yeah. Huh?
That reminds me of that Slaves to Darkness endless spell, which is like you know how it like you have to count all of the models that die around you and
yeah.
Right.
But then also, jeez Louise.
Yeah.
That's so weird. So what we're talking about, the flavor of this one helps you. It's so weirdly worded that knowing the flavor of the sub-faction helps you understand what's going on.
Yeah.
The flavor is the Ivory Host are the guys from the realm of Gur, or invading the realm of Gur, and they use the beast bone in their bones, so they get angry when they're attacked. When they get hit, they get angry really easily.
Okay.
So the idea behind this is if they've taken damage earlier in the turn by any source, then their exploding 6s to hit ability becomes, instead of 2 hits when you roll a 6, it becomes 3 hits when you roll a 6.
Got it. So you want
so
to
they get more angry and their exploding 6s becomes better.
You want to let them fight second, essentially.
Yeah, which is where it gets iffy. So the book can be very tanky, but generally you don't want to be getting hit first, even if you are super tanky. Because if you drop a model or enough models, then the exploding 6s means it's worse anyways.
It's true, but then it would it might make for a simpler game plan where you're just like 5 up wards, all of you, and then now I'm kind of getting both, like Good effect.
And then if you accidentally take no damage, you don't get the ability because you got 2 defensive.
I mean, whatever. If you didn't take any damage, then I don't feel anything for you. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. This sub-faction is like, it's like a win more thing. Either you take a little bit of damage and you get a little bit more value. It doesn't stack with the spell specifically. There's a designer's note where the spell that makes you explode on a 5-up, you still only explode on a 6, so that's not a combo before you get too excited.
Yeah.
The best I can think of is taking an endless spell and then tagging all of your own guys with damage from that endless spell.
Right.
So that when they then fight, they're doing more damage.
I like it. That's a good idea.
So that's like the best use case I can find for it. Otherwise, and then there's so many. The rest of the sub factions are so much better, I think, and it's just clearly worse.
Okay. Where are we going next, Carson? Interesting or good?
Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting. All right. We're gonna start with crematorians.
I'm going to warn you, if I'm not going like this with my mustache the entire time you're doing it, it's not interesting enough. So.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Okay. So, crematorians, to sell you on it right away, it's the exploding guys. They explode when they die. The ability is called Immolation. Ooh. Each time a friendly crematorian's model is slain, before removing it from play, pick an enemy unit within 3 inches of it, roll a number of dice equal to the wounds characteristic of that model. For each 5-up, you do a mortal wound to that unit. I'm waiting with bated breath for the mustache.
Interesting, yes. Basically, the Stormcast, same thing.
But better, because it's 5.
So much better. Yeah. So much better.
5 instead of 6.
Twice as likely.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's other, because this army can regen models back, and particularly with the Gothazar Harvester, you can get way more value out of it.
Yeah,
so
that's
you
very
true. And then the other really nice thing about this Allegiance ability is OBR has a very distinct lack of mortal wound output. They mostly just stack rend on you. So this is a good way of getting mortal wounds in your army. So it's really nice for that reason.
Right.
It's not adding direct power, but things will die anyways. So it's interesting. It's not. It has counterplay. You can shoot, but it's still good.
It's just melee, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I see.
Well, it applies to shooting, but you have to be in combat with the thing you're exploding.
Because it's 3 inches, right?
It picks a unit within 3.
I like it, though. Wow.
Which is nice.
All right, what's interesting, number 2?
Yeah. Next one is Null Myriad, which is supposed to be Ark in the Black.
I know. Okay, go on.
And I'm surprised that Ark in the Black isn't keyword locked to Null Myriad for that, but I'll take it. Null Myriad is the ability is Eldritch Nulls. You roll a dice each time a Null Myriad unit wholly within 9 inches of a Mortisan or Ark in the Black is affected by a spell cast by an enemy unit. On a 2-up, you ignore the spell effect. So your heroes emit a 9-inch aura. Your little footcaster heroes and Ark in the Black emit a 9-inch aura of 2-up spell ignores.
So if in the future anyone ever says, hey, I'm having trouble playing with OBR against Zeech, you're just like, Null Myriad.
Null Myriad. Oh.
Yeah. Null Myriad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that is interesting because, oh, by the way. Yeah,
oh, yes.
Oh, thank goodness. I was so sad.
I was like, not interesting enough. Goodbye. Yeah. No, it is interesting because it's one of those things where it's very situational. Like, certainly you could go up against someone who has, like, little to no casting and certainly no offensive casting as well. So
yeah, if you go up against KO, you're just kind of like, oh, my whole allegiance ability. Ooh.
It's gone. Yep. Yeah.
Gets it.
But it could also completely save you.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
But also, like, I like what Carson said there, because the ogre spells are mostly buffing your own things. So even though they're casters, they don't really care either.
Yeah. like, you guys have your bubbles over there. I'm like, cool. I'm gonna give myself more attacks. See you soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although
Right.
it would deny you like the most fun thing ever, which is the spell of the maw.
That stupid mod always does so much damage against me. People roll so well against me.
Against me too, but against anyone else in a battle report, and Carson cannot roll it to save his life. It's crazy.
Oh man.
Good times. Okay. Now we're on to the meat.
So it's like that Warlord trait that puts out the aura of hurting shooting. It's specific, so it's good specifically.
I like it.
Mm-hmm. And then, yes, the last two, the good ones.
The good ones.
The good ones. So, this is what confused me, because I've heard a few times now that, the OBR sub-faction abilities are all so good now. And I'm like, are they though? Because I feel like it's just going to be people taking two of the good ones, and then if they're feeling a little saucy, taking one of the maybe Crematorians or Null Myriad because they feel like they want to be special.
Special
but it's just like, these two are too good.
I am a little disappointed that Petrifex Elite is again one of the good ones, and maybe the best one again. Like, before it was like the only one. It was like everything else was, lorem ipsum text. But okay, let's start with not Petrifex Elite then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mortis Praetorians is my favorite one.
It is.
There's a lot to talk about with Mortis Praetorians. I feel like there's a lot to unpack about it.
Okay.
But the ability, called the Dread Legion, and I don't know why it's called the Dread Legion. It doesn't really feel fitting for what it does.
Surely it affects Battle Shock, Matthias.
Surely. That's what it used to do. But now, something completely different.
Cool.
Once per turn, during the enemy charge phase, after an enemy unit finishes a charge move, pick a Mortis Praetorians unit within 12 inches of that enemy unit, and not in combat, more than 3 inches from enemy units. That unit can attempt to charge. So, it's a counter charge ability. When an enemy unit charges in, you can counter charge. That's the idea.
You sure can.
Super powerful. That's just huge, because out of phase movement in AOS warps the game huge in such a massive way. Like, being able to retreat instead of fighting is really big. Redeploy just changed the face of the game. Nurgle's Blightkrieg ability, which is what I love so much about Nurgle, this is kind of like a similar ability, but now it's codified as an allegiance ability for an army.
So you don't need particular model like you do in Nurgle.
Yes. To unpack the interesting things about it, it's an allegiance ability tagged to the keyword. So anybody can do it, which means your opponent has to worry about any unit in your army doing it that isn't in combat. All of the named characters in the book are Mortis Praetorian keyword. So if you're taking this Legion, which is already really good, you don't care about named characters not getting allegiance abilities anymore. They all can use this ability. Catacros, Vokmortian, Archcavalos Xantos, and Mir Kanan.
Wow.
And then Arcan can, because he's not keyword locked. They can all use this counter charge ability.
Wow.
That's another interesting thing to note. The most interesting thing I find about this ability is the unit that you choose to do that counter charge with does not have to charge the unit that just went in, that is triggering this ability in the first place. So I have a line of Mortet Guard. My opponent throws a unit into it, like a Stonehorn, charges into it. Let's say, a Mortis Guard off to the side over there that just watched that happen, that are now like 7 inches away. They can charge in and help pile onto that Stonehorn to help try and pull it down or make him sweat more, make him split his attacks, whatever. But they can also just look over the other direction and charge like those Mournfang over there. They don't have to charge the thing that just came in. They're just free to charge now.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that's really interesting. That can catch people out so easily, because it's any unit in your army that's out of combat, and they can charge anything they're in range of. So it's just like,
that's crazy.
You can pull out such weird things with it.
It seems like, so I used to play a lot of Space Wolves in 40k. Or not a lot, I played Tyranids more, but I played Space Wolves, and they have an ability to heroic intervene, which is like just a 3-inch move, and like and you can also do a 6-inch one on certain things, and they had a stratagem where you could spend 1 CP to do countercharging and that kind of thing, and like the big brain plays you could pull with that kind of out of phase movement, assuming you're up for it, it is an extremely powerful toolbox.
Yeah, it becomes an army-defining ability.
Exactly.
Because of how good it is.
It's so good.
The Glotkin has a similar ability, and you take the Glotkin for that ability, and it changes how Nurgle plays.
Exactly. And that's something that you used to have to pay 700 points for. You used it to win the Seattle Open, right?
Right.
And now it's still like 600 and some odd points for the Glotkin, and it's just like, no, just your army just gets this whole thing now.
This is just so much better.
It's so much better.
It's better and worse in some ways, but I still like this one so much more. Because the last part about the Mortis Praetorian thing to note is the counter charge happens in the middle of your opponent's charge phase. Yeah. So they charge in with the thing, and in the example given before, Stonehorn hits Mortek Guard. A Mortis Guard don't have to charge Stonehorn. In fact, they're going to go charge those Mournfang cavalry before they hit my hero that I don't want getting tagged.
Exactly.
So,
and if they
charge, now you can't charge. They're in combat.
Well, and another thing to mention too, that like even against really good players, like when you're playing, and I'm not insinuating that I'm playing Age of Sigmar at a particularly high level, but if you are one of these elites, like Matthias here, you are when you're planning your what units to charge in, you're thinking about, okay, the sequencing, you know what I mean, of my attacks means like, you know, like you might go like, well, it's a
nightmare.
It's a nightmare because I'm just gonna charge in one unit, because the sequencing issue, if I charge in 2 units, means one of those units dies. So I'm just gonna charge in 1 unit, and that way I don't have to worry about the sequencing of my attacks. And then you're like, oh well, guess what? They're in combat too now. So sucks.
They're in combat anyways. Screw you.
And by the way, like those Blood Knights that you were not going to charge in because you were worried about them dying. Well, guess what? They also don't get the extra damage because they didn't make a charge move. I did. So suck it, jerks.
The other piece. Yeah.
It's crazy. Like this is, I think.
So there's.
Oh man.
You can do countercharging so all of the things that I can think of that this ability enables. You can pile on combats to make a combat go in your favor when they're trying to push hard. You can stuff up other charges before they happen. You can turn off, if they were going to get in there anyways, you can turn off charge bonuses, whatever they might be for your opponent. You can use it to get a support hero that you do want to get in combat, like say the Artifact, where turns off command abilities within 3 inches. Your opponent can just charge the thing that he's next to and not pull him in. Too bad. Now he's going to get into combat anyways.
Yep.
You can use it and you can use it in the reverse. My opponent hits my hero. Now I can bring in my Immortus Guard, who have the Bodyguard ability, into him and protect him. If my opponent hits me with something unexpected, I can play around that and react to it. It's reactive because it happens in the middle of the phase. You can set up counter charges. Like that's a thing that I think that's a simple application of it, is the counter charge. I put Cavros Death Riders or Mortek Guard in the front, knowing they're going to get hit, and then I put my hammer further back outside of your charge range, so then when you hit my thing on the objective, I put in my guy. I love Archcavalier Xantos for this, because he gets impact hits and +1 damage on the charge.
Yep.
And so you set up an easy counter charge where they can't hit the thing off the objective without getting hit by me with my charge bonuses turned on.
Yep. This is going to take some serious, like, if you want to be able to beat this against a strong player, well, like a Matthias, you are going to need to practice against it. Like, if I had been able to even just remember that he had this ability in the battle report, I wouldn't have charged in my Blood Knights into your Death Riders because, like,
yeah,
what ended up happening was gonna happen.
You can do it. How to stop it.
Yeah.
You need to worry about your sequencing. You need to worry about where you're going to use your reroll charge command ability. Typically, you want to order it specifically, like the most important charge first, so that if you need your reroll, you can use it there. But now maybe you don't do that, because if they're your first charge, then I have the most opportunity to use this ability. Whereas as charges go on, more things get stuck in combat. I have less things outside of 3 that are getting charges on something within 12 for them to countercharge. It ends up, there's a lot of, it's just one massive extra layer to remember in the charge phase and positioning with everything. I think this one is going to start off clearly worse than Petrifex Elite, but if you can figure out how to use and set up and position all of the different ways to utilize it, it'll slowly and like insidiously become better than Petrifex Elite for what it can do.
I totally agree. I don't think this is ever the faction for your basic player, your roll dice player. I think this is the high level 40 chess guy. But as Keith said, and don't use it to teach new players. Don't use OVR.
Oh God, no.
Yeah, just don't use OVR. This is a horrible army to learn against. Yeah. There's a few of them out there.
And there's ways to get around it too.
There are.
Because if you have your units too close to each other, and your opponent tags both of them, you can't countercharge. So if you're trying to hope to get a countercharge ability, if they tag your thing within 3 inches, now they can't countercharge.
Yeah.
Or they can see what you're trying to set up and just not go for it and just go somewhere else.
That's true.
So that's the 4D chess part. Like, your opponent is interacting with it too.
That's
it doesn't
true.
just happen.
That's true. Yeah, between 2 high-level players, I can see this being very enjoyable. Alex says, so the 2 good sub-factions are good, Smooth Brain in parentheses, and good Finesse. I think you should have put Wrinkly Brain if you use Smooth Brain. But yeah, that sounds about right to me.
Right.
Countercharge pairs nicely with reduce enemy charges to really punish. Although if they don't make the charge to begin with, then you can't countercharge them as well. So
it layers it on thicker, but you're not getting as much value out of it when you're not getting charges to trigger your ability.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, I set this trap. Oh, he didn't spring the trap because of my nerfs to him.
Right.
That'd be kind of a funny moment, though, to be honest. You're just like, damn it, why didn't you make that charge? It's like, because you did it. You did it to me, you jerk.
Screw you.
Oh, man. I think that, on the whole, though, that first statement is definitely true. Okay, now we're on to Petrifex Elite. Smooth Brain.
Yeah.
Smooth Brain.
The last thing I'm going to say about Mortis Praetorians is I think after I've played this book for like 6 months, I'm going to have to do a Mortis Praetorians 101 to talk about everything that I've learned about this.
Yeah.
There's just, it goes so deep, like
content,
did,
baby,
that I think you can make an entire video about using it.
Heck yeah. Or if we're lucky, 2. Yeah.
Right.
Sweet.
So then the last one is Petrifex Elite.
Yep.
Which is, Smooth Brain. It's simple and very powerful in what it does. It's called Unstoppable Juggernauts. Subtract 1 from the damage inflicted to a minimum of 1 to successful attacks that target a friendly Petrifex Elite Hecatos keyword or Petrifex Elite Gothizzar Harvester unit.
Okay. So the Gothizzar Harvester is a specific unit.
Yeah, that's the big monster that can recycle units.
Yeah.
Recycle Mortet Guard, pretty much, is all it does. But also heal for other guys.
And the Hecatos units are the stalkers?
Hecatos keyword is Gothizzar... it's not Nadirite. Why can't I remember what they are? This full name of the stalkers. I'm going to scroll down now to find it. A Mortis Guard is the first one.
Okay.
Then the other one is the other variant of the kit, the Necropolis Stalkers.
Okay.
Necrostalkers, a Mortis Guard, Morghast Archive, Morghast Harbingers. Those 4.
Oh, shoot. So the Harbingers are also...
Yes, they're also included in this.
Whoa. Horrible
those
says...
5 different pieces. Thank you, Warble.
Yeah.
-1 damage is a huge ability. Yeah. In my opinion, it's one of the most defining features for Daughters of Cain and Nighthaunt through the Heart of Fury and now I'm blanking on the name of the guy, the hero who gives -1 damage in an aura, Krulgas Cruciator. And then it's also like a hugely defining ability for Coalesce Seraphon.
Yep.
Assuming they keep that in the new book.
Assuming so. Yep.
And now Petrifex Elite alone puts them in the ranks with those other armies.
No
this
kidding.
Sub-faction, if Mortis Praetorians wasn't so good, you would just assume all the time that OBR is a -1 damage army because people would be taking Petrifex Elite and then spamming those Hecatos keyword units to get the value from it.
And spoiler alert, the Hecatos keyword units are good. Particularly the Stalkers and
Mortis Guard and Necrostalkers are kind of a defining unit of the army now.
Yeah.
Then Morghasts aren't amazing. I think they're being throttled by their points right now, so they're entirely liable to get really good if their points go down and become super powerful.
Okay.
But right now they're an interesting tech piece to include for their other value.
Whew.
But it's just huge. 2 damage is prevalent in the game. That turns off. And in particular, I've noticed with the meta, like mass Rend 1 damage 2 is becoming popular, or is becoming more and more common. Ogre Gluttons, spam Rend 1 damage 2. Rat Ogres, spam Rend 1 damage 2. Chaos Chosen, spam Rend 1 damage 2. Then the last one, Plague Monk Censor Bears, spam Rend 1 damage 2. And then other Rend 2 damage 2 sources as well are going to get hit hard by this. It's just so much value. And it's easy to just take it, and then 80% of the armies, you're going to get value against it.
You're right.
And like Alex is saying, everything he has damage too, like Fire Slayers, the big dragon Fire Slayers, Magmadross, they're all damage too. Iron Jaws, you turn off War Chanters. From the outset. Cruel Boys not so much because they're mostly relying on Mortal Wounds, but Stormcast can do damage too with their Retributors and stuff.
Right.
It's just good. It's just good.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. So sorry. So it's -1 damage, and then what was the other thing it did?
It's -1 damage to specific keyword things, to a minimum of 1.
But what was the other thing?
Hecatos keyword and Gothazar Harvesters.
And then is that it?
That's it. Subtract 1 from the damage inflicted to a minimum of 1 by each successful attack that targets. The important thing to note is each successful attack. So shooting is included in this. And that's really important for Kharadron Overlords.
Right.
Kharadron have a lot of multi-damage attacks now.
Wow.
And what's really nice about that is that's really nice for the Gothazar Harvester, because typically the way around a Gothazar Harvester
is you shoot
is it's so impossible to shift Mortet Guard when there's a Harvester behind them.
Right.
And so really efficient shooting that can be multi-damaged gets reduced. And so it's really nice for protecting your Harvester in that sense.
Crikey.
And Iron Blasters as well are really getting hit hard by that too.
Jeez.
Kharadron Overlords, Iron Blasters. There are a good amount of damage one-shooting, Sentinels, Bow Snakes, and whatnot. There's a third
Raptodons
one that I'm forgetting.
now, I guess.
But those two. Yeah. There you go. The Axolotls. And then things like Warp Lightning Cannons, that's another big shooting one that isn't multi-damage.
So it wouldn't affect the Warp Lightning Cannon because the mortal wounds happen one at a time.
Yeah.
It's not a damage characteristic.
Yeah, Warp Lightning Cannons. Right, Warp Lightning Cannons are the workaround. It's Storm Fiends that are getting hurt by it because their big thing is that they're damaged, multi-damage.
Right. Yeah, especially, or it makes it no point in doing a Warp Spark.
Yeah, exactly. Unless it's the Mortars, which D3.
Or I guess the Doom Wheel too, because then it just.
Or the Doom, also D3, yeah.
Right. Jeez Louise. Get yourself that nerf ranged enhancement with this subfaction. Walk through chaos.
Oh yeah.
No kidding.
You can go specific anti-range for sure.
D3 damage stuff. Do you bother rolling in case there's a 3?
That's why I rate D3 damage over 2 damage, because they're supposed to be the same, except when you have -1 damage sources, D3 is just straight better, because there's a 33% chance that it does 2 damage, whereas 2 damage gets turned off.
I went through this.
With Petrifex Elite coming back, and assuming if Seraphon keep that, and they're going to be super popular with all those brand new beautiful Saurus models, -1 damage is going to be huge again, which means D3 damage is going to go up in value over damage 2.
Right. It seemed like they were getting rid of D3 damage, but there's plenty of it in the new books. Interestingly.
Yeah, all the little foot heroes are getting damage 2 in general.
Right.
But there's other things around that do D3.
Stark says Judicator Stomps.
Judicator Stomps, yeah. Because they just spam damage 1. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean...
and they do mortals.
That's out there for sure. Yeah.
It hurts the poor old long strikes, but they get mortal wounds as well, which can get around it a little bit, so they're not hurt as badly, but it still hurts.
That's true. Giselle, same thing.
Yep, same with Giselles. The last allegiance ability is the core battalion, and then the Warlord Trait, or the battle tactics grand strats.
Okay.
Which are all the match play things that kind of go together.
Right.
So in continuing with all of the various allegiance abilities, everything in this book being great, the core battalion is actually good.
Oh my gosh.
Because normally these things are always like,
it's not fair.
Okay, whatever. There's like very rarely a good core battalion for an army that's better than a 1-drop, or in some weird way it has a magnificent or the 1-drop in its own right, or has a magnificent that's worth taking because it's specific.
Yep.
The OBR one is, in simplest terms, the 1-drop, but instead of, because it's 1 big hero, 2 little heroes, up to 2 little heroes, minimum 2 units, up to 5 units, but instead of being 1 behemoth or 1 artillery, it's up to 2 behemoths and up to 2 artillery.
Up to 2 behemoths.
So it's just...
That's insane.
So it's the same as the 1-drop, but you can have up to 2 Gothazar Harvesters and up to 2 Mortet Crawlers instead of choosing between 1, and you just get 1.
That's so wrong.
It's not strictly better, because it comes with the restriction of, at the end of the deployment, each unit in the battalion has to be set up within 6 inches of 2 or more units in the battalion. So it technically has a drawback, but it never comes into play in practice.
No.
So it's just it's like 98% of the time a strictly better battle wedge. So it's a good battalion. You're like, okay, let's just continue with having good things in this book.
That sounds really awesome. Carson's interested. He's got the mustache going on.
Nice. Good.
Wow. Okay, and then what's your grand strat? Is there any good grand strategies in there?
So the grand strats and battle tactics is the one thing bad in this book, which is
I'm sorry.
so important for balance. Yeah. Yes, honestly, an OBR player, yay. I'm glad that they're not good.
Wow.
Because at the end of the day, you can be super efficient in all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But if you have grand strats and battle tactics holding you back, that alone can pull you down to being on par with other really powerful books that have really good grand strats. Like, this book's like, it's pun fully intended, its bones are better than the bones of other books. But the fact that its scoring is worse, because scoring at the end of the day is what wins you the game, puts it on the same level as other really powerful books.
And I think it should probably be said that that mostly just applies to tournament, like higher level play.
Yeah, for sure.
Even I don't tend to I don't tend to worry about my grand strat because it's usually not applicable. It's usually like one person's dead.
Yeah, you're just playing the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, because of that, it's still.
Would you ever?
I'm not saying that the book is worse because it's worse than other books because of those grand stats. I'm just saying that it's probably at the same level as other really powerful books, despite it having such a high power level everywhere else.
That's fair. Are there any grand strats that you would take over the current core ones?
So the specific. So they're all really. The one I would consider taking is the Scales Balanced. When the battle ends, you complete the Grand Strat if any friendly Mortek Guard or Cavalos Death Rider keyword units from your starting army have the same number of models as they did at the start of the battle.
Whoa.
So that one's technically easy to deny. If your opponent's going turn 5, any of those units that are still at full strength, you can just pop off the models and you deny it. Or if you're tabled, or just throughout the game, your opponent focuses down those units. If they're all dead, can't score the Grand Strat, you're good.
Right.
So it is absolutely stoppable, and you can just accidentally drop it too if you forget to heal your things. In particular, Mortek Guard are weak to it because you only need to lose one model. A horse you can afford to take up to 2 damage because it's a 3-wound model before you drop a model, but that also means it's after it loses a model, it's really difficult to add a body back because the way the regen in the book is worded, you add models with wounds characteristic equal to it. So
you have to roll a 5 or a 6.
You need to, and if you have any damage on you, all of the healing sources in this book, if you have damage allocated onto you, it heals you. You have to be at full health before it starts putting models back.
Right.
Which means if a horse unit has damage on it, you can't add a model back. And now, if it's turn 5 and you have 4 horses, but you have 4 horses, but one has damage on it, you can't just add a model back.
That's true.
So you end up for this Grand Strat needing to take a unit of Mortek Guard and shoving it in the corner where it's not going to be affected by the game.
Right.
And even then, it's still liable to be hit by something teleporting over there and snapping a damage off at the end of the game.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's the best one they have.
Okay. Well,
yeah,
and
it kind of seems like a win more strat, to be honest.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. Why don't we move on to battle tactics?
Yeah.
So
there's 2 that we really only need to talk about, and then in general, there's a trend with them that you can cover. We can cover them.
Okay.
The important part is the 2, the way I look at it, are decently easy to score. You just have to build into it to get them, but that's really important. It means your list building is being limited, but the fact that you can have 1 or 2 from a competitive standpoint, I feel like having at least 1 book tactic is mandatory, and then having 2 puts you in a comfortable position to be scoring a tactic every turn.
Right.
The way the OBR tactics is there's 6 tactics, and each of them is specific to a unit in the book. So you have to take that unit in your list in order to be able to score it. The 6th one, kind of not really, but basically in a roundabout way is. The first 2 that are the important ones that I'll bother talking about are Trample the Defiant. Pick a Cavalos Death Rider unit not in combat. Complete the tactic if they've made a charge move, and at the end of the turn, they are in combat. They're within 3 of an enemy unit.
I hate any kind of mechanic that encourages you to make a charge and stay in combat. So, because you're basically...
It's not great.
Yeah, it's just like... I can't tell you how much I loathe that. I mean, and it partially it's just a feel thing. Like, it's just like, I don't want to charge something in and not kill it. Now you can multi-charge, obviously, and then kill one unit and leave another unit alive, but I hate it. I hate it.
It's annoying for sure.
It's annoying, yeah.
Yeah. It's not the worst. I mean, with
it's not.
Cavallos Death Riders, when they do charge, they get a 6-inch pile-in, so it helps you tag things like that.
Wow.
So that's really helpful. And it's not you have to kill a thing. So the worst is you flub roll, or you accidentally spike high and wipe the thing, or spike high and your opponent fails their battle shock on purpose, and then you're out of combat. So it is failable, absolutely, but it's relatively doable. It's relatively doable.
Well, and
but it requires you to take Cavallos Death Riders.
And if you're charging like a unit of 10 skinks or something like that you think you're probably going to easily kill, it's not like you need to pile in everyone. You could just pile in one guy and make sure that you don't kill them, you know?
Yeah, try and orient yourself to flub rolls on purpose so that you
and
don't kill them very efficiently.
It is at the end of the phase?
At the end of the turn, you need to be using 3.
So you do have to worry about battle shock, like you said, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what's the other one?
The other one is the Sculptor's Entourage. You complete this tactic at the end of the turn if a friendly Immortus Guard and a friendly Mortisan keyword are contesting the same objective wholly outside your territory. So it's Cunning Maneuver plus.
Right.
At least that one's scoreable after you table your opponent, though. Those are always really nice to have.
True.
Like, I know it's silly to say, but it's like you have to save those until later, right?
Yep.
Like your Cunning Maneuvers and Cunning Maneuver plus. But
Desecrate, Cunning Maneuver, for sure. This one's the best for sure in my mind, because you're basically always going to want a Mortisan keyword hero for that's going to be the Ossifactor with the artifact you give him.
Yep.
Or it could be Mir Kanan has the Mortisan keyword. Vokmortian doesn't, so he doesn't count for it. But Immortus Guard are very valuable in general. And Immortus Guard, in my opinion, gets so much value purely because this tactic is way more achievable than the Necropolis Stalker one is. This is a great turn 1 tactic and a great end of the game tactic, like Carson is saying.
Yeah. From the meat dimension.
Alex is taunting me from the chat.
Alex?
How did taunting me go in the tournament, Alex? How did that go, huh? putting Kragnos in front of me.
Oh, that's funny.
How dare you?
What is he saying? Keith says, when making big plays and counterplays, Matthias just has to make sure to push the glasses up the nose. If anime has taught me anything, that will guarantee victory.
Yeah, that's right.
Have you ever seen those glasses that they sell with the fake shine on them?
That's right.
Oh, man. I want one so bad. Alex says, you heard him, Stark. You only need one. Just do lightning shattered morale. And then...
just with the, you only need one battle tactic for your boat to work.
And then Alex says... Otherwise,
which is a garbage tactic for...
otherwise, someone might not roll their ward saves to deny your tactics, Carson?
He did that with... So I used the Ogre ability where it's like, everyone's hungry at the start of the combat phase. Yeah. But then I charged a bunch of units into his general, and he's like, I will opt not to use my ward saves to block your trampling charge mortal wounds. And I was like, oh no, please. I need these. I need these. Like, I rolled too well.
Oh man, sad.
That's so funny. Okay.
The other 4 are just a Mortek Crawler needs to kill something with his shooting attacks.
Oh.
A Gothazar Harvester needs to kill an enemy hero or monster. You declare an enemy hero monster, a Gothazar Harvester has to kill it with its attacks. The Necropolis Stalker one is have 2 Necro Stalker units wholly within enemy territory, 9 from all enemy units, which is why that one's so much tougher to do than the Immortus Guard variant.
Right.
It's not as bad as people think it is, because wholly within enemy territory, that's tough. Outside of 9 is the really tough part.
Yeah.
But remember, you can charge something in their territory and then kill it, and then now you can be outside of 9 if you kill it.
That's true.
This is a big thing for ogres, where they do the have everybody be hungry, where they have to be outside of combat. So if they all charge in, kill a thing, and then they're hungry at the end, so they can still score it. It's the same thing you can apply for the Necrostalker.
Beginning of the combat phase for ogres, though, I believe.
Oh, is it beginning?
So you'd have to kill them with just trampling charge rolls if you wanted to do that.
Oh, man.
So that's what that was.
That's a gamble and a half if you want to try and do that.
Yeah.
You know what though? Like, I don't know how killy the Gothazar Harvester is, but if you see like,
he's good.
Well, if you see like a Skaven Engineer on like a couple of wounds that's in range,
oh yeah,
you're just kind of like, hey there, big boy.
The thing is, the Harvester isn't an auto take. He ends up being parked behind Mortet Guard a lot of the time.
Sure.
Mortet Guard move 4, so it's difficult to maneuver it in. So it becomes a situational tactic that you're also taking a unit that you're not always taking anyways.
Right.
So you don't build around it. You just take it if you happen to have it. Same with the Mortet Crawler one. You don't take crawlers unless you have a specific reason to. And the battle tactic isn't good enough to convince you to take a crawler at all, or to begin with. So if you're taking a crawler anyways, then great. It's a situational tactic that's turned on.
Also,
the last one is...
Well, I was going to say, for those that don't know what we're talking about when we say the Gothazar Harvester, that might be because you know him as the Crotch Goblin.
The legendary Crotch Goblin.
Yeah. I believe that's the scientific term for the Gothazar Harvester.
There you go.
Latin. Sorry, the last one?
The last one I'll just talk about is Unfeeling Recursion, which is one of the most difficult battle tactics that I've seen.
Okay.
You complete the tactic if there are 3 or more Ossiarch Bonereaper units on the battlefield that had models returned to them using the Reknit Construct command ability and did not have any models slain in this turn.
Good grief.
So the Reknit Construct's command ability, as a reminder, is at the end of your movement phase, you can issue this OBR command ability, heal D3 wounds to unit if there's no wounds allocated, return a number of models equal to D3 wounds allocated. So you need to have not lost any units, not lost any models in that turn, which actually isn't that bad because you need to be out of combat to use Reknit Constructs, so you're probably retreating anyways. But you need to retreat with 3 units that are eligible to even heal with Reknit Constructs. There's only 2 units in 3 units, technically. Mir Kanan's Reapers, which are 2 wound models.
Right.
So you need to roll a 3 up and not have any wounds allocated them to do it. Same with Kavlos Death Riders. They can't have any wounds allocated to them. They have to be missing a model, and then you need to roll a 5 up to even get the model back because it's a D3 roll, and there are 3 wounds each.
Jeez.
So it's basically Mortet Guard ability, or battle tactic. You need at least 3 Mortet Guard units with damage on them that they need to retreat and heal back up. Ooh. So it's super painful to do because you need to leave combat, giving up board space, leaving an objective maybe, just to heal D3 on them. And you need to have 3 Mortet Guard in your list to begin with. And all 3 of them have to have damage on them to begin with. So it's such a bad tactic.
Yeah, this is what they call a long bomb, you know?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Now, before we get into the too long territory, I do have to go at the very latest 10 o'clock our time. We should talk about some of the... Like, why don't we talk about your favorite units? Like, the ones that... You said there's a lot of auto takes, but maybe we could go through the ones that you think are going to be in most lists. Yeah.
So, yeah, I can talk like briefly what I like about some units and then in depth on 1 or 2.
Sounds good.
The number 1 is Catacross.
Yep.
He is...
Oh my god. Yeah.
The most auto take of all of the units outside of the Bone-Tithed Reaper, which is an endless spell.
Okay.
And he has a lot to go on, so there's value in explaining it to people so they understand what's happening with him.
Right.
So what hasn't changed? He's 20 wounds on a 4-inch move, 3-up armor, bravery 10. It's all bravery 10 because of death. He's still a big chonky boy, 20 wounds on a 3-up save. Movement 4 sucks, but remember you can add 3 to your move. and you have access to auto run 6 now. So he has ways to get around that 4-inch move better. He's still the same way as before, where he has Indicott, which is his big spear, the Shield of Mortis, his big shield, and then his followers have a lowering amount of attacks that take damage, but Catacross's Indicott and Shield of Mortis go up as you take damage, because he starts having to fight more and more as his retinue dies off. That part's still kind of the same, which is a really cool idea. It's all 3s to hit, all 3s to wound. Indicott is now Rend 3, damage 3. I might have been that before. The Shield of Mortis is Rend 2, damage 2.
Oh my god.
It starts at 1 attack for both, scaling up to 4.
Oh.
And the retinue actually scales really well. It goes from 10 attacks, scaling down to 7. So it's scaled really efficiently for you. The big thing to remember is all of these profiles all explode now. All 6s to hit explode, so that's a big plus for Indicott and the Shield of Mortis. They also cap at 4 damage each. I don't know if they did before, but that's great.
How many attacks are there
or
again?
4 attacks.
How many attacks are there with the top profile with the spear?
1 spear attack, 1 shield attack, and then
I meant, sorry, with
at the bottom profile it's 4.
4, okay, wow. And minus 3,
yeah.
3 damage. Sheesh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it's great. I'm going to skip ahead in his abilities here because it's relevant to his damage profile. A new ability he picked up, and an answer to Keith's question, does he actually try it in a fight now before he's not almost slain? Yes, in certain situations he does, because it is 4 wounds left before he fights at full value, which is like really okay.
Yeah.
Really close. Really rare at that point. But his new ability, Do Nothing, this one is mine, is use the bottom of this unit's damage profile while he's within 3 inches of any enemy heroes. That's such a cool ability. I love the flavor of it.
Yep.
It's literally because the way that the damage table works is he's telling all of his retinue, stop fighting so much, it's me, and then he's putting in all of his attacks. Because there's an enemy hero, there's something that he deigns worthy to fight within 3 of them. That's so cool. I love the idea of that.
I love when
it also means he's actually able to hit, right?
Yeah.
And he can actually hit things. The nice thing I appreciate that they did is it's while he's within 3 of an enemy hero, he doesn't have to hit that enemy hero. So when it comes to actual rules fighting, it's really nice.
I don't like that. That is very anti-flavor.
That's anti-flavor, yes.
It is.
But it's nice for in-game.
Yeah, I bet. It sounds like it.
So that's cool. So then, starting from the top down, he's a War Master if you're in Mortis Praetorians.
Oh.
Which is interesting. He's not a War Master. I feel like he should be a War Master in every sub-faction, even though he's Mortis Praetorian specific. But it is what it is.
Right.
So if your general dies, he still can generate a CP for you for your general being alive. He issues within 18, other than his 1 extra ability, which we'll talk about after.
Mm-hmm.
And if your general is slain and he's still alive, you can still generate CP on a 2-up, whilst also getting the CP for having your general alive. That double dip bonus.
Yep.
Those are the reasons to care about him being a War Master.
Mm-hmm.
I like that idea. Watch this.
Yeah.
And stabs the grots next to him.
It's so true. In case anyone's listening to this, Keith says, points at enemy hero, watch this, kills a bunch of mooks.
I like the idea of that.
Yeah. Look what I can do.
His retinue's companion, which doesn't really matter. This unit is personal guard on with retinue blades, which their companion means that they're treated as rules purposes as a mount, which would mean they don't get the exploding 6s. Because if you remember, the allegiance abilities, you get 6s exploding for any attack that isn't a mount. But included in the companion rules, it says the Nerfed Weapons battle trait applies to the attacks made with the retinue blades. So they still get it, which is good. A good catch by the rules writers to think about that ahead of time.
Agreed.
And then we get on to the actual abilities that he has.
Mm-hmm.
So each of his retinue has an ability, and they don't drop off the abilities as they die because they're not apparently not actually dying anymore, which is so nice for not having to remember all of the things.
Right.
And I really appreciate. They just have them at all times. So the Banner Boy, which is the guy with the big banner next to him, he has once per turn, you can issue an Ossiarch Bonereaper, a command to an Ossiarch Bonereaper unit anywhere on the battlefield for free.
What?
So
that's crazy.
You'll find all of the liege keywords in the book, which is Catacross, Archcavalo, Xantos, and the liege hero on the horse. They all have the ability to issue a command once per turn for free, which, makes sense. The allegiance ability, the main allegiance ability of this army is dumping out command points. So the big commanders of this army give you more of that. But the cool thing is the banner gives you a board wide once per turn, which ends up in really weird situations where a unit can issue but can't, or can receive but can't issue. Really weird corner cases. It can help with that.
It makes Lady Olinder even worse.
True, makes Lady Olinder even worse. If like a giant has picked up your unit champion and tossed him away or stuffed him in his bag or whatever, you can still give the unit that ability because it's board wide.
Neat.
But that's just nuts. It's just nuts. The Gnosis Scroll Bearer is the next one. That's the guy on the steps holding the scroll up to Catacross that he's reading off of. This is a really just powerful one that I forgot to use in our battle report. At the start of your hero phase, you can pick one enemy unit on the battlefield. You don't have to see it. There's no range. Just pick one on the battlefield. Until your next hero phase, -1 from hit rolls for attacks made by that unit that target OBR units.
That's gross.
It's just good. You don't have to roll for it to happen. He doesn't need to see it. There's no range. And they're -1 to hit for melee and shooting. So it's just so powerful for making you an even better tar pit army. It is what it is. There's not much more to say about it.
That's all true.
And then one of my favorite ones that's just such like an asshole ability, the Aviarch Spymaster, the guy with the little bird cage who's holding a bird in his hand.
Okay.
Once per turn, you can roll a dice when your opponent receives a command point. If you do so on a 5-point, that command point is lost. And this is answering Keith's question. Do they still steal enemy command points? Yep, and there it is. It's on a 5-up instead of a 4-up now, so it's not going to be as common, but Catacross is going to be way more common, so it kind of in effect is going to be more of a thing you can expect.
Yep.
This is each turn, so when your opponent gets a CP for the turn, they don't. So if their general's alive, you're basically doing it every turn to turn off that ability. If their general's dead and they generate a command point with their heroic action, then you're like, no. You don't take the CP, so you don't add it to your pool. That's important to note, because other abilities sometimes do take it and add it to their pool. This just removes it. And a 5-up means you can't rely on it, but your opponent sometimes just doesn't get it. That's if you roll those 5-ups, it's so bad for some armies. It can be so bad if you roll those 5-ups well.
There's for most armies, if you're rolling it well, it's just like other than like Gits, I haven't really encountered an army where I find that I don't go through all of my CP every turn.
Other OBR.
yeah, that's true. Oh god.
Oh no, I got 6 instead of 7, or I get 9 instead of 10.
Oh no.
Right.
Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah.
And as if that weren't all enough.
Like all of his, and then the little bodyguard boy, he doesn't have any abilities. He's just, I think the little bodyguard boy is why your minimum attacks is 7 and your maximum is 10.
Right.
He's just there adding attacks to the profile. That's his thing. But he doesn't have any special abilities.
No. And then also
don't forget, there's one more model on this diorama.
Yeah, that's
Catacross has things he does. So the Mortarch ability, him and Ark in the Black have the exact same ability for this. So I'll just read it off and just know that Ark in the Black does this as well.
Cool.
In fact, Nagash does this too, but it's a little bit better. In your hero phase, you can pick up to 3 different friendly Ossiarch Bonereaper units wholly within 24 inches of this unit. If that unit is not an Immortus Guard or Necropolis Stalker unit, you can heal up to 3 wounds if they have damage on them, or if they have no damage on them, you can return a number of models equal to 3 wounds or less. So this is the same wording as Reknit Constructs, where if you have damage on you, you're still not able to return models. It can only return models up to Catalyst Death Riders, except for the next part. If that unit is an Immortus Guard or Necropolis Stalker unit, if they have damage on them, heal up to 3 wounds. If they're at full health but missing a model, on a 3-up, return a model to the unit, which is huge for them. That's this codifying word, the way they've codified this word and including that for healing has made Immortus Guard and Stalkers so much better because now you can return models back. It's on a 3-up and they can't have any damage allocated on them. But the fact that you can do it at all is huge because they're now 5 wound units, 5 wound models. So that's a lot of wounds you're healing back when you're able to do it.
Well, and couldn't you theoretically heal them up first and then use this ability?
The only way to heal them is with this ability. Reknit Constructs is the only other way to heal, and that's in the movement phase. This is in the hero phase.
Right, okay.
So, yeah, that would be really nice, but the other way it works means that's a good thing to keep in mind with OBR when you're playing against them, is if you can get damage to just stick on their models, that's going to severely impact their ability to regen models back, because they have to heal before they can start putting models back.
Right. And then there's...
But
wait, there's more.
Yeah, so just to help save time, that wording is exactly the same for Arc in the Black. 3 units wholly within 24. It's the same for Nagash, but it's any number of units wholly within 24, scaling down as he takes damage.
Okay.
And it's the same wording for the Bone Shaper, one of the little Mortisan guys on foot. The Bone Shaper picks 1 unit within 6, and he does the exact same thing. And then that's what that artifact for the Bone Shaper is. On a 3-up, you can pick 2 units within 6 and do that healing, or pick 1 unit and do that healing twice.
So you could theoretically do it then on an Immortalis Guard then? You could heal them first and then do it?
Yes.
Bring back a unit.
So between the Bone Shaper, multiple Bone Shapers, the Bone Shaper with the artifact, Catacross and Arcan and Nagash, you can heal them up. You stack that ability to heal them up and then start adding models back.
Insane. And because it's an ability, you can just do it multiple times. Wow.
Yes. The last thing on his war scroll is the 2 command abilities he has. First thing to note, I'll just read them off first and then I'll talk about them after. The first command ability is Endless Duty. This is a same command ability that a normal Leash Cavalos, that's the horse hero, has. The exact same wording. Use the command ability in your hero phase. That unit that receives the command must be a friendly OBR unit. So in this case, wholly within 12. If you're in Mortis Praetorians, he's a general, so wholly within 18. Until your next hero phase, add 1 to the attacks characteristic of that unit's melee weapons. That's really good because it's in the hero phase, so it's not going to conflict with your combat phase abilities, and it's until your next hero phase, so it's your turn and your opponent's turn. It lasts through their double turn. You're stacking attacks. That's don't mind if I do.
That's insane. Yeah.
I've just been laughing this whole time because you said Endless Duty. Sorry.
I was.
Is that why?
I was trying to keep it. I was trying to keep it together.
Looking at Rob's face, like, sorry, my bad.
Yeah, I was looking at Carson's face and just like trying not to lose it. Oh my! Yeah, nice. Dale says Endless Duty. Yeah.
Endless. Thank you, Dale. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
My club mates are all children.
Yep. Matthias is the youngest one in our club, like by a landslide, and he's still like the most mature, probably. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And the fun thing about this ability, despite how powerful it is, you're rarely ever going to use it. Because the other command ability he has is also issued in the hero phase.
And it's even
so
better.
You have to choose between one or the other. But the second one is so much better. Supreme Lord of the Bonereaper Legions. It is, you can use this command ability in your hero phase if he's more than 3 inches from all enemy units. This unit must receive the command. So he issues it to himself, basically, in the hero phase. If you do so, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by friendly Ossiarch Bonereapers wholly within 24 of this unit, and add 1 to save rolls for attacks that target friendly Ossiarch Bonereapers wholly within 24 of this unit. This ability alone, a 24-inch aura of +1 to hit, +1 to save, is why you take Catacross.
Yeah.
The other abilities are nice. They're cool. His combat can be neat.
Yep.
His healing is very helpful. But the only thing that he is solo carried by on this word scroll is this ability. Because wholly within 24 is such a large aura that it's 80% of the time an army-wide, +1 to hit, +1 to save. Yep. The +1 to, and it's issued, no one receives it other than him, and it's issued in the hero phase, so you stacks with all-out defense. He had this ability before in his old war scroll, but the +1 to save part was locked to Mortis Praetorian, so now it's any sub-faction, so he gets along with any sub-faction. And it's the one reason that the book, this one ability is why the book will save stack so efficiently, because it has access to Mystic Shield, has access to all-out defense now, and Finest Hour, but it now also has another source of +1 to save for everybody. The +1 to hit part is also immensely huge. Almost everything in the book hits on a 3-up. This sets it to a 2-up. All of a sudden, now you don't have to be spending command points on all-out attack, which means you're more resilient to roar. It means that you can be using it on bludgeon, or you can be worrying about defensive command abilities more often.
Yep.
And 3-up to hit when you're exploding 6s means pair it with Catacross, you're 2-ups to hit on everything, you're exploding 6s. He issues this command, everybody effectively auto-hits. Ta-da!
Yep. And so Dale says he's going to go up in points. He's going to be in every list. And then we have 2 people asking immediately, how many points is he?
He's 440 points. So he is quite a bit.
But
cheaper than a stone horde.
Yeah. he's
yeah. The big thing to remember about Catacross and that ability is he's not allowed to issue it if he's in combat. So there is a counterplay to it. It's not just no interaction, I get this. If you can tag him in combat, so super mobile units will be able to tag him, and if you aren't a hero, his combat isn't great. And then it rolls around to your hero phase, ability shuts down, he can't issue it.
Manglers
the nice thing
are back,
is,
baby.
That's right. Stonehorns, manglers, things that fly. That's super valuable.
Stonehorns.
Yeah.
Wow.
The big, if he can't issue that, the nice thing is he can issue Endless Duty at that point, which is Endless Poo Poo is very good because it's a very good command ability, but that's a nice little like consolation prize. You don't get that super game warping ability, but hey, here's a super powerful ability that gets to make your opponent laugh because you say duty.
You should say like, instead of saying endless duty, sometimes you should just be like infinite poo poo.
Infinite poo poo. There we go.
Oh man.
One thing I do want to say.
Sorry, go ahead.
Horrible, or I don't know how to. Is that how you pronounce his name? He had a great point out that I didn't see before. He said earlier that the first ability, Endless Duty, +1 attacks to everything on a profile works really nicely with Catacross, because if he's on his top bracket and he has 1 attack, he issues that to himself. That's 2 attacks. He's doubling his attacks with Indicott and Shield of Mortis.
Right.
because it's 1 to 4 attacks. That's a lot of value putting it on himself anyways.
There's so much amazingness going on in the chat. I believe I meant to ask Horrible. I believe is a good friend of all of ours, but I don't want to say his name because I'm not sure if he's okay with that. So Horrible, could you let me know if it's okay to just call you by your real name? And if not, it's totally cool. Time to bust out the green stuff and start sculpting curls. Oh man. Okay, so we've got 20 minutes left before I need to sprint out the door. Right. Can we get some like highlight some what's it called? Quick fire, lightning round.
Yes. Yes, Catacross can heal himself. Everybody's bravery 10, so we can heroic recovery. The big thing is Unit Constructs can heal heroes, so remember that. If he's out of combat, you can get another D3 heal.
Okay.
And he can use his own heal ability on himself.
Right.
Arkin, I love because he's now 14 wounds on a 3-up, and he has the vampire ability of healing, where when he does damage, he heals up to 6. That makes him super tanky, and that's amazing. Whereas before he was super squishy, now he's really tanky.
Yeah.
3-up save, which means he can save stack to a 2-up. Still has Curse of Years, still has great casting and unbinding, which is really nice.
Sheesh.
Archcavalus Xantos, and remember, Arkan still has the same healing ability as Catacross.
Right.
Archcavalus Xantos, I love. He's also keyword locked to Mortis Praetorians, but you want that sub-faction anyways. He is 5 attacks at Ren 2 damage 2, +1 damage if he's charged, which combos really well with the Mortis Praetorian sub-faction. He gets impact hits on a 5-up, so he rolls a number of dice equal to his charge roll. Each 5-up is a mortal wound, and he's a 6-inch pylon when he charges, so he's double-dipping charge bonuses. He still generates a free CP every turn, and the big reason that I love him is in the combat phase, he can issue a 12-inch aura of +1 to wound until your next hero phase.
Whoa.
So again, a static aura of +1 to wound. This and the Gothazar Cartouche, which is the Ossiarch's special artifact, are your only 2 static auras +1 to wound. Other than that, you're looking at Counter-Strike, and pluses to wound are so valuable.
Wow.
So he's great. Vokmortian, greatly improved. I love it. He's a double caster. Right. He was garbage before. He's actually good now because his points are cheap. He's 140 points. He's a double caster. He's a lore master, which again is why the spell lore is not bad, because he's a lore master. Arkan's a lore master as well. His spell is cute. His Contract of Nagash, pick an enemy unit at the start of combat. On a 3-up, they have to spend a CP to attack him. That's cute. His 12-inch aura of -2 to bravery is actually nice because the Bone Type Shrieker turns off Inspiring Presence, so that's actually good.
Wow.
So he's good because he's cheaper than a Soul Mason. If he were the same price or more, he'd be worse because he doesn't have a keyword for battle tactics.
Right.
And he's named character. Ossieffector, garbage. You take him just for the artifact. His ability is Bone Shaper is the best of the little foot heroes because he has that heal ability that we talked about, up to 3 wounds, or on a 3-up returning a guy.
Right.
His artifact is good. His spell is actually good now. It used to be pick an enemy unit, roll a number of dice for each model in the unit. On a 6-up, they take a mortal. Now it's on a 5-up, they take a mortal. So it's actual respectable anti-horde. That alone is interesting, but his healing is also like the most reliable for any of them. The Mortician Soul Mason is improved, and he was already great. He's still a double caster, but now he's a lore master as well. And him being a lore master is huge, because that means those super specific spells aren't locked to your unique characters. He's a generic Mortician, just normal hero. His artifact, special artifact, is garbage, but he's a double caster, lore mason, and his spell is now pick a friendly Mortek Guard or Cavalos Death Rider unit, give them +1 to wound. Again, static pluses to wound. Very valuable, but the fact that it's locked to those 2 units, and those 2 units aren't typically your damage dealers, means that it's nice, but it's not game-changing good. The Throne is still the same thing. He can cast that +1 to wound spell an additional number of times. On a 2-up, he gets to cast it once more. On a 6, D3 more times.
Wow.
I just love him because he's a double caster lore master.
Yeah.
and he's generic for it.
Wow.
160 points, whereas Mortian's 140, so those two are kind of competing for the same slot. The Soul Reaper is a little bit better combat. Also, another nice thing to note is the Ossiarch, Soul Reaper, and Bone Shaper are all 120 points, so they're all interchangeable. But the Soul Reaper, he has a good spell. It's the exact same as Arcane Bolt, but instead of 1, it's D3, and instead of D3, it's 3.
Wow.
So it's just, which is good.
Yeah.
Because OBR doesn't have access to Mortal Wounds, so that's actually good. Past that, he's just a little bit fightier. I could go into why his ability for +2 attacks on his melee profile is kind of bad, but we don't have to get into it. It's the melee on the other two is actually decent enough that the Soul Reaper's melee isn't that much better. Mortek Guard are still pretty much unchanged. There's a few neat quality of life improvements. The Soul Cleaver Greatblade isn't worse to wound or anything, so it's just flat damage 2 instead of damage 1, so that's great. I love that. It's actually takeable now. Sure. And Shield Wall, instead of rerolling, obviously not there anymore, is now Ethereal, which is not as powerful as you would think, because with Catacross, you can save stack more, but in the event that they're not being save stacked or the save stacking isn't valuable, like if your opponent has just insane rend, right, then it's nice to have as a backup option. So it keeps Mortek Guard reliably defensive. They can save stack, or they can go Ethereal, or they can focus on upping their ward. All three of those command abilities are combat phase though, so again, Roar is bad, but also they have to choose between one of those three: all-out defense, going Ethereal, or adding one to their ward saves.
Wow.
Immortus Guard and Necrostalkers are I think the stars of the show. They're the big meat and potatoes, because they went from 4 wounds to 5 wounds. Immortus Guard are 4 inches to 5 inch movement. They're actually fairly comparable. Immortus Guard are 200, Necrostalkers are 220, so they're pretty close. Immortus Guard are 3 attacks, 3 up, rend 2, damage 2. Necrostalkers are 4 attacks, 3 up, rend 2, damage 1. The special guy is a 3-inch reach, so he can hit over top his friends. But he's rend 3 attacks instead of 4, rend 2, damage 2. The reason they're comparable is Immortus Guard have a 3-up armor, Stalkers have a 4-up armor. For the most part, Stalkers are damage 1, but Immortus Guard are damage 2. But Stalkers can add 1 to the damage when they pick their aspect at the start of combat, or they can add 1 to their save. The other two aspects you won't choose, +1 to hit or +1 to wound, because they're not as good as +1 to save or +1 damage.
Unless you're facing something with -1 damage that you just want to get the wounds through.
Yes, that's the other workaround.
I see.
Stalkers baseline do more damage because they're 4 attacks instead of 3 attacks when they're in their hitty aspect.
Yeah.
And they have the extra damage from the Dread Falchion. That goes to damage 3. So baseline Stalkers do more damage than Immortus Guard, but Immortus Guard have a command ability that they can issue to themselves in the combat phase. Once per battle, they fight twice. Woo. So once per battle, Immortus Guard will hit harder than Stalkers, otherwise Stalkers hit harder. Immortus Guard have a 3-up save, whereas Stalkers have a 4-up with the option of going to Blade Parry aspect and going to a 3-up effectively. A 3-up static is better than a 4-up with a +1.
Right.
So sure. Immortus Guard are better defensively.
Yep.
But in effect, they're about the same. The big difference is Immortus Guard can save stack to a 2-up, which is huge, over save stacking to a 3-up with Stalkers, because you can never go more than +1.
Yeah.
But the big thing that Immortus Guard have over Stalkers is they're both at the same time. They're damage 2 and they're a 3-up. Stalkers have to choose between damage 2 or 4-up with a +1.
Right.
But what Stalkers have over Guard is their command ability is in the hero phase, they issue it to themselves. They gain run and charge and can fly over terrain.
Whoa.
Which means they're so much more mobile.
Right.
Their movement 6 base over Immortus Guard's movement 5 base, so They can give themselves run and charge and still give themselves retreat and charge because it's a hero phase followed by a movement phase. Or they can give themselves run and charge and then auto run 6. So they're very mobile. They have that huge output that can also follow you around with movement so you can get it where you need it.
Right.
But Immortus Guard have an easier battle tactic to score. Stalkers don't.
Right.
So there's like a lot of back and forth between them. But they're the stars of the show. Generally, they're fighting for the same spot. You can mix and match to try and double dip for battle tactics from both. But they're great.
Right. Do Immortalis Guards still have a bodyguard rule?
Oh, yes. That's the other thing I wanted to say. Thank you. Immortus Guard have soulbound protectors, so if a friendly OBR hero, can be any hero, is within 3 inches of the unit, before you allocate a wound or mortal wound to that hero, or instead of making a ward roll or a wound roll, instead of making a ward roll for that hero from that wound or mortal wound, that would be allocated to that hero. Roll a dice. On a 2-up, that wound is passed to the Immortus Guard and can't be negated.
Wow.
So
really good.
Yeah, if a hero takes any damage while they're within 3 of Immortus Guard, on a 2-up, it goes to the Immortus Guard instead. That's really, really powerful for protecting the hero. But that actually ends up being a weakness. Because Immortus Guard on a 3-up save end up being the thing you want to save stack and then throw in the front lines.
I see.
But if you have a hero within 3 inches of the Immortus Guard, all your opponent needs to do is target that hero. I have to bodyguard it.
Yeah.
It's not a can ability, it's a must.
And then you don't get a
lose
ward.
my ward roll when I do.
Right.
I don't get to ward roll and then pass it off. I don't get to pass it off and then ward roll.
Right.
It specifically goes past my ward. So if you put mortal wounds on a hero within 3 of the Immortus Guard, you're doing true damage to the Immortus Guard.
Right.
And because the Immortus Guard become your workforce of the army that are taking the hits, dealing the damage, sitting on the objectives, you don't want them taking true damage like that. So you almost never, you don't want your heroes within 3 of your Immortus Guard because of that.
Right. Absolutely. I do want to comment on some of the things that people are saying in the chat, which are hilarious and awesome, but we can't afford to keep going, Matthias.
Can't afford to. Catalyst
Yeah.
Death Riders are my favorite over Mortek Guard.
Wow.
They're just, for 20 points more, they're 5 wounds more because it's 15 wounds for a 5-man, whereas Mortek Guard are 10 wounds on a 10-man. There's back and forth because it's easier to regen Mortek Guard back, and there's more bodies on an objective. But I like Death Riders more for being tankier. They're also 10-inch move versus a 4-inch move, which is huge.
Wow.
Still +1 to run and charge from their banner. They have the same impact hits as the Liege Cavalos and Xantos. They roll a number of dice equal to the charge roll. Each 5-up is mortal. And they pile in 6 when they do that.
Wow.
So that's nice. The Death Rider Wedge is actually interesting. You use the command ability in the charge phase, so it's not going to conflict with your combat phase command abilities. If you do so, the unit gives it to themselves, and they can fly over units that have a wound characteristic of 3 or less. That's really nice.
No kidding.
That, paired with their 10-inch movement and their 6-inch pile-in, means they have a lot of tools to get into enemy heroes or things behind enemy screens or things you don't want your enemy getting into.
Right.
So they have a lot of mobility, and that's really nice to see. So they have more unit value than just their battle tactic. That's relatively doable. They got Rend 1 and Rend Nothing attacks that, again, Bludgeon will up to Rend 2 and Rend 1. So they're just good. I just love them.
Yep. Very high quality. Okay.
The Gothazar Harvester's the same with how he regens models. He effectively gives Mortek Guard a 4-up regen.
Ward.
And then also can heal a 4-up ward, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's not codified as a ward, so it doesn't get turned off or reduced or anything.
Wow.
He's slapped in combat, 6 attacks at Rend 2 damage 2, then 4 attacks at Rend 1 damage 2, all 3 up, 3 up.
Whoa.
Remember, it's all exploding 6s, and it's 3 ups to hit. Catacross makes it 2 ups. 3-up to wound, so it's just good.
Wow.
He's great. He's a monster. Has the regen.
He's
Vortex Crawler's changed a lot.
And he is a monster?
Mm-hmm. He is a monster,
wow.
Yes. He's your one monster.
Wow.
Other than Arc in the Black.
Okay.
Yeah. Mortek Crawler doesn't have his special once per battle abilities from his ammo. Now they're just normal ammo profiles that he chooses from. So he has just a scaling level of rend and damage.
Oh, okay.
You can read it, Stark. Just read the War Scroll and you'll figure it out. You're smart. Cauldron of Torment is 2d6 shots, 3-up, 3-up, rend nothing damage to. The 2d6 part is what really hurts it. If it were like 8, it would be so much
random.
better.
Yeah.
The next one is 4 attacks, 3-up, 3-up, rend 1 damage to. So you're just picking up rend 1, but you're going from 2d6 to 4. But it's also 6-inch more range. It goes 18, 24, 36-inch range. And then the last one, the 36-inch range one, is 1 shot, 2-up to hit. So instead of 3-up, 3-up, it's 2-up, 3-up, rend 2, damage D3 plus 3. So that one's like doable. It's that or the first profile generally.
Yeah.
The unique thing it has is it still can't shoot things within 6, so it can't unleash hell, even though we have the ability to unleash hell now.
Yeah.
But its ability is after the unit shoots, roll a dice for each enemy unit that was targeted by this unit's attacks in that phase. Add 2 to the roll if all of the crawler's shots targeted the same unit. On a 5-up, they get strike last. So if he spreads his shots out, everything he touches doesn't have to kill them or hurt them.
Yeah.
Just has to be targeted. On a 5-up, they get always strikes last. If he focuses on 1, on a 3-up, he gets always strikes last.
Wow.
The value of this is that because the Allegiance ability wants you to take 7 or more units to get the commander points you want, you might end up taking MSU because remember, this is an expensive army. You don't just take everything you want. You have to pick and choose.
Yeah.
So you end up taking like min-sized battle lines or trying to MSU it. And if you have multiple units just trying to get that 7 unit threshold, always strikes last goes up in value because you tag a thing, then throw all of your stuff into it.
Right.
So that's the use case I see for a crawler.
Okay. And then endless spells? Is that the last thing?
The Morghasts.
Okay.
They're relatively the same. 6 wounds on a 4-up means they're squishy. Petrifex Leak can help with that, -1 damage. Movement 10, they fly. The big thing they do now is within 3 inches, they turn off all command abilities.
Whoa.
That's very powerful.
No kidding.
But they're 240 points, so it's really painful to fit Morghast in the list because of all the other things you end up putting in.
Wow.
You end up making sacrifices to put them in.
Yeah.
But it's kind of worth it for that ability.
How many wounds are they each?
In addition, 6 wounds each.
Dang.
So they're never going to be regened back.
No, but still. 2
of them for 240 points is 12 wounds on a 4-up.
Yeah.
That's very killable.
Yeah.
They both also have a natural charge of 8 is ASF. That's great. Wow. The Morghast Archai are 5-up ward near heroes, and the Harbingers can heat strike. Sure.
Okay.
Mir Kanan and his Reapers I won't get into. There's a really weird interaction with Mir Kanan's spell that needs to be FAQ'd, but it'll be what it is. The Endless Spells, the Predator is great damage for 40 points. I like it. Soul Stealer Carrion is turning off enemy units within 6 inches of it that have a wound characteristic of 1 or 2 can't contest objectives. Dang. That's really interesting until you remember it's cast on a 6, so your opponent can just dispel it in their turn when they're about to try and pick up an objective. And it's like, never mind.
Fair.
The Bone Tithe Shrieker is the easy win for 50 points. Enemy units within 12 inches can't Inspiring Presence, can't rally, and are -1 to ward. This ability, none of these abilities affect Ossiarch Bonereapers, so no value in the mirror match. But -2 to ward is another ability that will be so game warping that when you think of OBR, you think -1 to ward save.
Yeah.
Because you're always going to see it, and it's just going to get so much value. And there's enough things in the game these days that have wards that it's worth taking for that alone. it also turns off Inspiring Presence. It's like, well, shit, all right. Don't mind if I do.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah. Absolutely amazing.
It does cast on a 5, so it's very easy for your opponent to pick up in their turn.
Right.
Which is why I like Dark Acolyte as the command trait. It really helps get it out, and then your opponent will pick it up, but you're hoping that you hit hard enough in your turn to turn it off.
Right. Wow.
No, I said bad word.
Yeah.
Bone Tithe Nexus has a -3 to charge thing. The big thing to remember is it's within 18, which ends up being short range because your monster. It's a huge terrain piece that's impassable, so you don't want to mess with your own deployment.
Right.
And if your opponent has a monster to step on it, you push it back so it doesn't get stepped on, which means that 18-inch range throttles it a lot. But that's a very powerful ability. It's better than almost any other ability.
Incredible. Yeah.
But if a enemy unit model dies within 12, it's on a 3-up instead of a 4-up. And that goes for all of the abilities.
Wow.
That's great. That's it.
Wow.
We get no allies because, of course, we're too good otherwise. But
because no one likes you. That's the real reason.
No one likes us.
Wow. Thank you, Matthias. That was insane. Like, and well done getting through the rest of the, at the last minute here. Appreciate it. I learned a lot even after having played them. Like, there's so much that I did not know. I think this is going to be valuable to people who are both watching it and like for people who are going to play it and play against it.
Yes, I hope people remember the things that are the ways to play against it.
Yeah,
there's some good counters and things to remember, and especially to remind your opponent because it's easy just for people to forget.
And you've done a good job of kind of going through that and mentioning it at each turn.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Not to say the army isn't good. It's amazing, but there are things about it.
It is amazing for sure. It seems like a very strong army to play. Low floor, high ceiling, everything you could possibly want. Matthias, I know that there's no people want to, you want to be reached. You don't do social media and everything like that, but you guys can look for Matthias at tournament. Go up and chat with him when you see him.
Or you can @ me on the sagaofdice Discord.
That's true. He is on the sagaofdice Discord, and you are welcome to join the sagaofdice Discord. I can't remember if it's in the description. If it's not, I will put it. Please come join us, and if you like and appreciated these kinds of reviews, please consider subscribing and commenting and doing all those fun things. But yeah, thanks you guys, and I gotta run, so we'll see you guys next time.
Let's get out of here.